health will be shared in the coming days.
The family of Minister Pravin Gordhan, the former Minister of Public Enterprises, wants to inform the public and the media that he has been hospitalized a few days ago. His condition was described as stable and that he's receiving the best medical care. At the moment, the family is at his side and appeals to the public and the media for space and privacy to be there and to support him, and also to counter any negative or false news that may be spread on social media about his condition.
Limpopo's health authorities have taken specimen from learners suspected to have contracted bilharzia at a school outside Tzaneen. More than 200 learners were tested and 27 are suspected to have contracted the waterborne disease. Over 150 learners tested positive for the disease at several schools in the Tzaneen area. Department spokesperson Neil Shikwambana says they are still waiting for the results of the recent tests.
The team that was led by MEC Dieketseng Mashego managed to screen 218 learners, and out of the 218, 27 were found to be suspects, where specimens were taken to the laboratory for testing, and results are being awaited as we speak. The provincial government's program of fighting this scourge is actually continuing with more screening and testing that is expected to happen in other villages around the Greater Tzaneen area.
Further afield, and finally, President Joe Biden has hinted at Washington authorizing Ukraine to use U.S. long-range missiles against Russia. This after the U.S. and its allies imposed new sanctions on Iran. The U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said the short-term ballistic missiles would probably be used against Ukraine. The BBC's Olivia Noon reports.
Speaking to reporters outside the White House, Joe Biden was asked if restrictions on Ukraine using long-range missiles would be lifted. The president replied that he was working that out. So far, Washington has been reluctant to supply or allow the use of weapons that could strike targets deep within Russia, for fear that it could lead to a further escalation in the conflict. Other countries have allowed their weapons to be used, but with strict restrictions. If the US changes its policy, it will fulfill repeated requests by Kyiv, where officials say they've been fighting with their hands tied.
Recapping the top story, the South African government says it will file new arguments in their case to the International Court of Justice in The Hague next month. South Africa intends to provide facts and evidence to prove that Israel is committing the crime of genocide in Palestine. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning, good start this Wednesday on the roads, although I must say the R21 coming out of Pretoria towards the airport's queuing earlier than normal into the Clayville roadwork section, so just make sure you got time to get through that. Mount Edgecombe side of Durban, quite a nasty crash on the R102 in the Broadlands area. That's likely to have just a bit of a slowdown effect in Cape Town. Building as we go into work along the N2 corridor between Khayelitsha and Pinelands. No obstruction, it is just pure volume of traffic moving slowly through to about Mowbray Main Road already, so that's an early start as well. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
You in your SFM sports headlines, it is Bafana. Well, they had late drama securing a last-minute win against South Sudan. And in rugby news, the Bulls director of rugby, Jake White, has confirmed that Kurtley Arendse will take up a sabbatical in Japan. Details around 6:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Wednesday, the 11th of September 2024. It's just gone 7 minutes after 6. From Auckland Park, Johannesburg, to wherever you are hearing us from this morning, in every city, town, dorpy, village, hamlet and kasi, from the heartland to the hinterland. Good morning, South Africa. This is the Morning Brief on SAFM, and I'm Thulasizwe Simelane, here to deliver it to you. Coming up on the show over the next 3 hours, last night was debate night in America, right? As Donald Trump and Kamala Harris faced off in their first and probably the only debate they will have between now and November the 5th, election day, which is about 2 or so months ago. Well, ahead of the debate, both of the candidates and their campaigns were seeking to move the rhetoric past the ad hominem jibes and insults and trying to showcase their policy offerings to the American people. Did they succeed in doing that, or did they fall back to their default positions as soon as the heat was on that stage in Philadelphia? And I'll be talking to Siphamandla Zondi at about 6:20, reflecting on the debate that was. I did catch glimpses of it. I couldn't watch all of it. I wonder, though, if you managed to catch all of it, and if you have any reflections about the candidates, about the potential implications of the election of either one of them for the African continent, for relationships and relations with South Africa. You can share those with me on the show throughout today. Well, in the wake of the wave of extortion and the so-called construction mafia cases, we will today seek to separate fact from myth around government's preferential procurement policies, whose bastardization and, frankly, corruption of concept sometimes appears to be woven into the activities, the illegal activities of these gangs. You often hear of these criminals and gangs demanding so-called business forums, demanding, to be given the equivalent of some 30% of the revenues from construction projects, or else the project doesn't proceed to conclusion. So at about 7:10 or thereabouts, we'll be trying to unpack what the actual legal position is and the policy position. What is this policy that is sometimes being bastardized by these gangs? You saw it a few days ago in Johannesburg. The demand there was for 1,000 rand from construction workers for that project to be allowed to proceed. So we'll separate fact from myth around what is it that is being bastardized by these groups. Also, we have all of your regulars. We have Ann Musa with news updates every half hour. Rob Byrne with your traffic every 15 minutes or so. Zai Khan is watching your sport throughout the morning. And Dauleng Lichela has your economics, business and the markets covered for you. Sipho Mantula will give you your Africa update just before 8 a.m. this morning. And of course, we are taking your calls throughout the morning, and the number to dial for that is 086 000 2032, and your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. Good morning, South Africa. This is the Morning Brief on SAFM.
When self-made billionaire Wilton Knight rescues police detective Lieutenant Michael Long after a near-fatal shot to the face, he gives him a new identity and a new name, Michael Knight. Paired with the unique Knight Industries 2000 aka kit, they are brought in during situations where direct action might provide the only feasible solution. Kusazo Shuba and Michael Knight and Kit are ready to rise to the occasion. Channel your best retro with Knight Rider, weekdays at 12 p.m. only on S3. Open up. Hey, Ntwana, if I could, I'd fly to Dubai.
Here we go again.
First class, Exeni. Niti shwe. Get myself a V12 Beast and a mansion with Instagram-worthy views.
You don't even have Instagram.
Imagine seeing the city skyline from my bedroom, watching MasterChef SA while I have my very own MasterChef in my kitchen. Forget the queues at the cinema. I'd have one in my crib, Joe. I'm talking 7.1 surround sound and a 120-inch 8K TV whilst I'm sipping on some grapes. I'm talking luxury, Ntwana. What do you know about that? Let me school you, bro. Tune into Dubai, Buying the Dream, Saturdays at 8:30 p.m. on S3, and channel your inner luxury. Only on S3. Open up.
If you're you're active on social media and love SAFM, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAFM page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations, and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation. The Daily News Diary on SAFM.
13 minutes past 6. Let's check in with Ann Musa. Ann, good morning. What's on your plate this morning?
Good morning, Tulas. Quite a lot happening, but our focus, mainly in courts this morning. In Pietermaritzburg, where in the High Court, that's where the former president, Jacob Zuma, will get to understand or will be given reasons as to why an application for the recusal of the lead prosecutor, Advocate Billy Downer, in his corruption case was dismissed earlier this year, and the judge had initially said he would hand down his reasons at the end of the criminal trial. And all of this comes as, Zuma plans to apply for leave to appeal the judgment that was made in, I think, sometime around March. In the Free State, the case of fraud and corruption against the former personal assistant to the then Free State Premier, Magashule Murwari Chulota, is expected to sit for pre-trial hearing in the Free State High Court in Bloemfontein, and it relates to the 2014 Free State asbestos project that was worth over 200 million rand, and Chulota is expected to be joined with other accused on this matter. And 8 suspects arrested in connection with fraud and corruption within the City of Cape Town's Human Settlements Directorate are expected to appear in court today, and some of these arrests made dates back to March of last year, when investigators raided the municipality's offices and seized items. And yesterday, a 46-year-old suspect was arrested in the Eastern Cape, and 3 suspects were arrested in Johannesburg, and 4 more were taken into custody in Cape Town. On Monday, the state brought an application as well before the Palm Ridge Magistrates Court to have the magistrate in Pastor Paseka Mboro Mutsening's kidnapping case recuse herself, saying that she will not bring an impartial mind in adjudicating this case. And this morning, Pastor Mboro is expected back in court, where the magistrate is to give a ruling on whether she will recuse herself or not. And just lastly, the ballistic expert is also expected back on the witness stand when the Senzumehiwa murder trial continues in the High Court this morning, and Edward Serero will return after the defense said that the results of the analysis of the marks on the test bullets were inconclusive. And we do know that 5 men, are on trial for gunning down the former Bafana Bafana captain while at the singer Kili Kumalo's parental home in Vosloorus in October 2014.
All right, Ann, thank you. Let's get the show on the road. That's Ann Musa there. She will have your updates at the bottom of every hour, and also your headline, your full bulletins at the top of the hour throughout the morning here on The Morning Brief.
Tulasizwe Simelane on The Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
So it would seem that winter wants to linger on a little bit longer, right? Every time we think we're getting a breakthrough and we can start thinking about, losing the layers and layers of clothing and feeling like spring has finally sprung, it sort of comes back to hit us one more time. The last few days, certainly in Johannesburg, I don't know what it's like where you are, the last few days have felt a bit like that. So let's give you a sense of how today is looking then with your traveler's weather forecast. Let's start with the warnings. The first one is that yellow level 1 warning that says damaging waves leading to difficulty in navigation at sea are expected in the morning between Table Bay and Cape Agulhas. There's also a yellow level 1 warning that says damaging waves leading to difficulty in navigation at sea are expected in the afternoon between Cape Agulhas and Plettenberg Bay. There's also a fire danger warning that says extremely high fire danger conditions are expected in places over the Free State, northeastern region of the Northern Cape, as well as western and southern regions of the Northwest. To your weather then, in general, we start in Pretoria, where the weather will be partly cloudy with a minimum of 11 and a maximum of 27. The expected UVB sunburn index in Pretoria is extreme. Johannesburg will be partly cloudy with a minimum of 10 and a maximum of 24. Vereeniging partly cloudy, minimum 11, maximum 25. Mbombela is partly cloudy, 12 to 23. Bulukwane partly cloudy, 11 to 24. Mahikeng partly cloudy and windy, 13 to 29. Vryburg is partly cloudy and windy with a minimum of 12 and a maximum of 31. Bloemfontein partly cloudy and windy, 11 to 29. Kimberley is cloudy and windy, 11 to 32. Uppington is fine and windy with a minimum of 10 and a maximum of 31. Cape Town, the weather is fine with the wind being strong southeasterly, becoming moderate to fresh northwesterly. It's a minimum of 14 and a maximum of 21. The expected UVB sunburn index in Cape Town is high. George will be fine, becoming partly cloudy from the afternoon. The wind will be light northerly, becoming fresh to strong southeasterly in the afternoon. It's a minimum of 6 and a maximum of 18 in George today. Gqeberha is cloudy with isolated showers and rain. The wind is moderate to fresh easterly, becoming strong in the afternoon. It's a minimum of 12 and a maximum of 18 in Gqeberha. East London will be cloudy with scattered rain and showers. The wind will be light and variable at first. Otherwise, it's moderate to fresh southeasterly, becoming strong easterly late afternoon. It's a minimum of 11 and a maximum of 20. And Durban is partly cloudy with isolated showers and rain. The wind will be moderate to fresh northerly to northeasterly, becoming light and variable from the morning. It's a minimum of 12 and a maximum of 23, and the expected UVB sunburn index is high. And Richards Bay is partly cloudy. The wind in Richards Bay will be moderate to fresh northerly to northeasterly, reaching strong from the morning. It's a minimum of 14 and a maximum of 27. And finally, Pietermaritzburg will see morning fog patches. Otherwise, it will be partly cloudy with isolated showers and rain. It's a minimum of 8 and a maximum of 25.
The students, UJ ladies, want to ensure that they secure 3 points to stay close to the heels of second place UWC ladies. However, Copperbelt ladies plan to fasten their belts tight and escape from the bottom half. This is the Hollywood Men's Super League. Catch them Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game. UJ Ladies FC versus Copperbelt Ladies FC on Saturday, 14 September at 11 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Hold on to your hats, folks, because FlySafair is heading to the windy corner. That's right, we'll be flying between Cape Town and Windhoek from the 22nd of October, and tickets are on sale now. So, if stunning landscapes, diverse wildlife and vibrant culture is your thing, get to flysafair.co.za now and book flights from just 1,800 Rand. With FlySafair, Namibia is never too far away. FlySafair, for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
Liverpool FC have collected maximum points in their opening 3 matches of the 2024-2025 season. They want more victories.
Look at the white shirts coming here. Salah! Salah scores at Old Trafford again.
Meanwhile, Forest want to dictate terms at Anfield.
High towards the back post. Wood with a free header. Yes! 1-0 Forest. Chris Wood scores.
This is the Premier League. Catch the spectacular clash between Liverpool FC and Nottingham Forest on Saturday, 14 September at 3:30 p.m. live on SABC 3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international news.
I've got to tell you, I've been gripped by the presidential campaign in the United States this year in particular, seeing the potential of a return of Donald Trump, but initially with the problem that the Democrats faced with an aging Joe Biden and now with the entry of Kamala Harris. Well, after nearly 2 months of talking about, criticizing and hurling jibes at each other, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris and the country's former President Donald Trump have finally had 90 minutes to talk directly to each other and have it out in a most anticipated debate in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The debate, hosted by ABC News, had been billed as a showdown that could define the rest of the presidential campaign leading up to Election Day on 5 November. It was the first and probably the only debate between the two presidential candidates after Harris entered the race following a debate in June, during which President Joe Biden performed poorly against Trump, triggering panic within his Democratic Party. Well, let's delve into the debate that was, and I'm joined now by Dr. Siphamandla Zondi. He is the director of the Institute for Global Dialogue. Good morning, Dr. Zondi. I imagine that you didn't get much sleep watching that debate in Philadelphia. Firstly, the aesthetics of it all. Let's start with the greetings. There was always that anticipation of how the candidates would relate with each other. Kamala Harris reaching out to Donald Trump, offering a handshake and introducing herself.
Oh yes, good morning and good morning to the listeners. It was anticipated, it was expected that Kamala Harris will have to project herself as a stateswoman and will have to project herself as respectful, knowing who she was dealing with and expecting anyway that the Trump will project the image that he's used all along, which is a kind of a bullet dominant figure, a person who takes no punches, and that's exactly what we saw. Trump knows exactly who is trying to appeal to.
Yeah. In fact, it was interesting that the way that it played out on the stage, it wasn't the candidates meeting in front of the podiums, but it was Kamala Harris leaving her podium and going almost to the back of Donald Trump's podium, because Trump by that time had almost reached the point where he would be standing behind the podium. But nevertheless, let's move to the substance then of how it then played out, Dr. Zondi. Initially, I don't know how you saw it on your side. To me, initially it looked like Kamala Harris went on the attack first, certainly in as far as the issues about the economy are concerned. But then Donald Trump came back swinging and calling Kamala Harris a Marxist and saying everyone knows that she's a Marxist. How did you see it from your end?
Yes, of course. And I think Kamala's strategy, and like you say it correctly, Kamala played a stateswoman role, so she reached out quickly and stuff like that. And then again, when it came to the presentation on almost every policy issue, she went on an attack, but in a very civil way, and Trump was forced to respond. And of course, Trump knows that if he paints her as a radical, paint her as a communist, a socialist, is alienating her from a pretty much very impressionable middle class and lower class in the United States. And of course, in debates of this nature, that the challenge, everybody plays to their base, and does very little to reach out to the other base. And I think Kamala does that a little better, even on the economy, does a little better by addressing issues such as the issue of wages, which are very key for the Trump base, issues of job security, which are very key for the Trump base. But Trump really plays to his own constituency, and it was to talk a lot more about Harris than about his own plan. I thought.
Yeah, let's talk about the policies at play that will be decisive in as far as this election is concerned. I heard the anchors introducing the debate and saying that the number one issue in the United States is the economy, that the voters want a focus on the economy. How much do you believe was able to be covered by both candidates as far as their proposals for the economy, but also on issues of reproductive rights of women are concerned?
Of course, it is going to be, and it's been that for a long period of time, that it is going to be about the economy. It really was, is about the economy. And even when we go into issues of quality of life, of issues of education, issues of care, of health care, which I would call, they're all underpinned by concerns regarding how each of the candidates is going to handle the economy. The U.S. economy is in tenterhooks in a way. It is growing, but it has lots of concerns. The inflation has been rising, which is unusual for the United States, and therefore unemployment rises on the horizons. And Trump sought to take advantage of that and pin it on Harris, who is, of course, governing the country alongside the current president. And on his side, I thought unable to offer new ideas that are different from the ideas that he offered when he first ran for the presidency. Pretty much the same gung-ho politics of protecting the U.S. economy, of infrastructure rollout and logistics rollout and stuff like that. I just felt that you're not getting new ideas from the U.S. debate about economy, and yet we know whatever happens in the U.S. economy affects the global economy. I was expecting a lot more about what would be done to do to build more inclusive economies. What would be done to dynamize trade relations? And of course, Trump did touch on the harmful sanctions, but that's just half the story. How the United States economy relates to the global economy does need rethinking. I didn't hear that much of that. But of course, other things come in, but they are, in my view, less significant. It's the economy and migration that they are trying to push really to the foreground.
All right, Dr. Siphamandla Zondi, thank you so much for your time. I think we covered much ground. The stage is set for that election on November the 5th, and those issues are now firmly on the table. And I suppose American voters and the rest of the world watching that election knows what each candidate would bring to the table. And that brings us to 6:30. Let's check in with Ann Musa for a news headlines update.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, former President Jacob Zuma will today hear the reasons behind the judge dismissal of his application for the recusal of the lead prosecutor in his corruption case, Advocate Billy Downer, made earlier this year at the Pietermaritzburg High Court. The South African government says it will file new arguments in their case to the International Court of Justice in The Hague next month. South Africa intends to provide facts and evidence to prove that Israel is committing the crime of genocide in Palestine. And Donald Trump and Kamala Harris have clashed over immigration, abortion rights and economy in the only scheduled head-to-head debate of the U.S. presidential election. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Just been a crash on Gen 3 North. It's between London Road and Marlborough Drive. If you're on your way from Edenvale through towards Buccleuch this morning, traffic really starting to backlog. Other side of town, a crash on the M1 North at Bayers Nordia. All lanes are open, but you've got big volume having a look. So just after 14th Avenue, it all gets a bit slow. The Mike 1 looking a little bit heavier this morning than normal. Already queuing from Gold Reef City up towards the sort of Empire Road, up through Crown and Double Decker and Braamfontein, very slow. R21 heavier than normal for this time of morning into the roadworks at Clayville. If you're on your way to the airport for flight connections, make sure you've got extra time to get through that roadworks backlog. And Cape Town looking fairly heavy on the N7 today. Jakes Kerville Drive already under queuing pressure from Vangate Mall all the way through to Beaufort Circle in the Epping area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Can I say it again?
Say it again.
Howdy, partner.
Howdy, partner. You're so American, you.
Zaikan. I think I was influenced by that conversation we just had on U.S. elections. It's starting to sound a bit like a broken record, right?
Yeah.
The same name keeps coming up.
I know. And you better believe it. He's scoring the points. Unbelievable. So
Talent. The incredibly talented talent.
Oh, Tulas, I don't know what to say because literally Bafana got a talented finish with that last-minute winner. Talent Mbata rising again to the occasion, proving to be the hero, scoring a stoppage-time winner as Bafana pulled off a 3-2 victory against South Sudan. It marks the first victory of Bafana's AFCON 2025 qualifying campaign and sees them now in second position. We're level on points with first place Uganda, who have a superior goal difference. Now, Bafana will return to Group K action next month, with South Africa and South Sudan facing respective double headers against Congo and Uganda respectively. More results. Egypt, they claimed a 4-0 win over Botswana in their Africa Cup of Nations qualification Group C match at the Obeditani Chilume Stadium in Francistown. The win saw the Pharaohs maintain their lead at the top of the group standings, having won their first 2 matches. Egypt will take on Mauritania at home and away when the qualifiers resume in October. Botswana, on the other hand, recorded a second successive defeat in the group. They are bottom of the standings. Botswana will lock horns with Cape Verde at home and away next month. Elsewhere, Harry Kane celebrated his 100th cap with 2 goals as England beat Finland 2-0 in the Nations League on a night Wembley also paid tribute to Sven-Goran Eriksson. Rugby, the Bulls director of rugby, Jake White, confirming that Kurt-Lee Arendse will take up a sabbatical in Japan, which will see the speedster miss most of next season. According to a report, the Bulls have given Arendse the thumbs up to make a short-term move to the Japanese club Mitsubishi Dynaboars to boost his salary. Now, Arendse, who's been part of the herd since 2020, is expected to be back at the Pretoria outfit after the Rugby Championship, but will leave for Japan in December. The 28-year-old will play in Japan's League One from December until May and return to Loftus in time for the Vodacom URC playoffs. And Arendse is still contracted with the Bulls until 2026. Now, EFC veteran Faiz Jacobs didn't hide the fact that he is a showman ahead of his bantamweight bout with Vince Bembe. The stage is all set for a battle of 2 equally respected fighters in the MMA fraternity for a chance to take the vacant title. Now, Jacob says he wants to entertain and beat Bembe in style.
I have been an undisputed champion. When I won the interim, the champion at that time refused to defend. So what this moment means to me is this. I am prepared to do whatever it takes to get to the UFC. And I need to make this... the belt is important, but I want this performance to sell me. So I'm coming out here to put on something UFC worthy. So the belt will come, but the performance is what I'm looking forward to.
And finally, women's golf. The world number 1 Nelly Korda says the United States have unfinished business as they bid to stop Europe winning the Solheim Cup a record 4th consecutive time. The 19th edition of the Transatlantic Tussle gets underway on Friday at the Robert Trent Jones Club in Gainesville, Virginia, with the hosts aiming for a first win since their loss 7 years ago. That's a wrap. We'll have more sport on the morning brief. Top of the hour, I'm Zai Khan.
There's sponsoring a news feature. Then there's helping your clients make the news. Search Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking to see how far they can take your business.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Yeah, for that, let's cross to Ndawling Lechela. And Ndawling, you're missing out each day that you're not in studio with us. You're missing out.
What is happening to us? What am I missing out on?
We're having so much fun. Crypto scams, you are telling us, have increased in 2023, have they?
Yes. Now, according to a report by the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigations, fraud within the crypto space has jumped 45%, losing a combined $5.6 billion last year. During the same period, the FBI's Internet Crime Complaints Center received around 69,500 complaints, although cryptocurrency scams made up only 10% of all complaints. they were responsible for a whopping 50% of all financial losses, having then a much bigger impact on losses financially. Now, according to the report, criminals used crypto most often in investment scams, which made up almost 71% of the total losses. Scams where callers pretended to be government officials, known as call center fraud, accounted for around 10% of the losses. Now, interest in crypto is said to have caught the attention of criminals again as prices continue to soar. Take Bitcoin, for example. Its price more than doubled last year, and it has gone up another 35% so far this year.
Let's focus on manufacturing, and it's some good news as far as that is concerned. There was some improvement, at least for the month of July.
Yes, it seems like the manufacturing industry started the third quarter on a good note, with manufacturing production rising 1.4% in July. This from a 5.5% decline in June. Now, the uptick was boosted by the following categories: food and beverages, and basic iron and steel, metal products and machinery. The car industry, though, including vehicles, parts and accessories, had the biggest negative contribution, dropping by 12.1% and dragging down the overall performance by 1.3%. This year, the automotive sector has fallen by 10.4% due to weak demand, high prices, and elevated interest rates. When looking at production for the year from January to July, output slipped 0.4% due to weaker production in the same sector, the automotive sector, iron and steel, as well as furniture categories. F&B economist Tanda Sitole says the decline in manufacturing output so far this year is due to weak consumer spending and a slowdown in private sector investment. But he expects a small recovery soon. He warns it may be uneven, though. Now, a survey of business conditions, which fell to 61.3 points in August, still shows optimism. And Sitole says to boost manufacturing, it's crucial to have a reliable power supply, which we've had since about the second quarter of the year. He's also said that we need lower interest rates and a stable currency.
Did I almost pick up a Freudian slip on your side? You wanted to say furniture and you almost said fashion.
Yes.
It tells you where your mind is, darling. Lastly, U.S. markets. I wonder if they were watching the debate, the presidential debate, but also give us a sense of how we closed on the JSE as well as Asian markets.
A mixed finish for markets to us. In the US, the Nasdaq and S&P edged higher, but Dow Jones closed in the red. Of course, traders assessing that presidential debate that took place yesterday, as well as just eyeing those growth concerns ahead of a US inflation report later today. Moving over to Asia markets, continuing their downward trend, still in negative territory, with investors holding off bets on risk assets ahead of some crucial U.S. economic data that the Fed are watching ahead of their monetary policy meeting next week. Sentiment back at home is quite positive, though, surprisingly so, with the JSE mostly in the green. The all-share closing the day 0.25% higher, fueled by gains in the financial 15, which is up just over 1% in yesterday's trade. In currency markets, dollar strength weighing on the rand this morning, with the local unit sitting closer to the 18 rand mark. It's currently trading at 17.93 against the greenback.
All right, thank you for that. Ndauleng Lechela will have another update for you just after 7:30 here on the Morning Brief on SAFM.
There's listening to the news, then there's making the news. Grow your business into the next big thing with Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. When you choose Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking, you get access to our business solar loans. Accessing our business solar loans means you get connected to the right supplier for your business and the most feasible tailor-made financing solution. And that financing solution means 8,760 hours of uninterrupted power for your business, sourced directly from the African sun. You see, there's going green. Then there's going green with us. Search Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Call to Lasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
All right, Lisa. Errol from Durban, yeah. Do you know, most of those people who joined the MK from other parties are people who were on the wrong side of the state capture, involved in the state capture with Zuma. So yeah, and so let them join Zuma and his bunch of bandits in the MK party. Errol from Durban.
Hold on to your hats, folks, because FlySafair is heading to the windy corner. That's right, we'll be flying between Cape Town and Windhoek from the 22nd of October, and tickets are on sale now. So, if stunning landscapes, diverse wildlife and vibrant culture is your thing, get to flysafair.co.za now and book flights from just 1,800 Rand. With FlySafair, Namibia is never too far away. FlySafair, for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
Real savings, real benefits. Here's what real clients say about Outsurance. Here's Amy.
To anyone who has not reached out to Outsurance, what are you doing? Reach out today.
Yusuf, 45 from Tegadal, pays just 700 Rand a month for his 2021 VW Polo.
It just shows that Outsurance is top of the tops when it comes to insurers.
SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
When self-made billionaire Wilton Knight rescues police detective Lieutenant Michael Long after a near-fatal shot to the face, he gives him a new identity and a new name, Michael Knight. Paired with the unique Knight Industries 2000 aka kit, they are brought in during situations where direct action might provide the only feasible solution. Kusazo Shuba and Michael Knight and Kit are ready to rise to the occasion. Channel your best retro with Knight Rider. Weekdays at 12 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
Yeah, just to respond to that voice note a little bit before I go to the next conversation, that one that was talking about most of the people, and this is the claim from the person there, that most of the people who have joined MK from other parties were involved in state capture, and describing it as Zuma and his bunch of bandits. I would say we need to be, to analyze it a bit deeper than that. I certainly don't believe it is true that everyone who has joined the MK is someone who was involved in state capture. A prominent example that comes to mind is Bongani Baloyi, for example, who joined quite recently. There's never been a whiff of scandal about him in as far as governance is concerned. In fact, he was mayor of Midvaal and was scoring clean audits year in, year out. But there is something to be said about the kind of lineup that they are assembling. It seems to me that it's deliberate. There's a deliberate strategy to assemble a particular lineup for particularly the leadership of the MK in Parliament. Keep those coming and do engage with me throughout the morning here on the morning brief. To this now, the Democratic Alliance in Gauteng is raising a rather interesting policy dynamic relating to the provision of homeless shelters in the province. The party's member of the provincial legislature and spokesperson on social development, Nazli Sharif, says there's a need to have shelters dedicated specifically to assisting homeless members of the LGBTQ community. Sharif says the Department of Social Development's failure to do this amounts to negligence and indicates a lack of care and awareness of the unique challenges faced by members of the LGBTQ community within the current shelter system. So Nazli Sharif joins me now for that conversation. Good morning. So why is the current shelter system, which the MEC, Faith Mazibugo, has told you currently serves all homeless people, including members of the LGBTQ community, why is that inadequate?
Good morning to you and good morning to all the listeners. So let me start by saying that currently the amount of shelters that we have is not enough. The state of these shelters are not one that gives the ability of privacy or that gives the ability for people to feel safe. So our stance is that members of the LGBTIQA plus remain vulnerable, not only in our province but within the country. They are vulnerable to homelessness, they are vulnerable to violence. This includes GBVF, domestic violence, sexual violence, hate crimes. And so we are saying that, okay, cool, if you want to say, let's have choice, then you must give proper choice. And choice is saying you can go to this shelter that has, their own cubicles, their own showers, where you don't have to shower in a communal shower. It has their own sort of private spaces where they can get access to services and assistance like psychosocial assistance, medical assistance, all of those sort of services that social development needs to give. And so we are saying that, okay, cool, if you want to say we have to mainstream it, then make sure that it's safe, because as it stands now, it's not safe. You know, and everybody knows we live in a very intolerant society, and so we must make provisions to keep people safe.
And the arguments you are making about the current shelter system, the integrated shelter system, if I can call it that, not being safe, what kind of testimonials and anecdotes are we receiving, and perhaps do we have some kind of sense of the dynamic of being homeless, while also being someone who is a part of the LGBTQ community?
Yes, absolutely. A couple of years ago, I was the chairperson for the Section 79 Committee on Gender, Youth and Persons with Disabilities in the city of Johannesburg. And we did a one-of-a-kind roadshow where we went across Johannesburg and we spoke to members of the LGBTIQA+. And this is where this idea comes from. We spoke to young people. We went to Eldorado Park. We went across the city. And we spoke to young people saying, what are your challenges as members of the LGBTIQA plus community? And a lot of the challenges was getting kicked out of the house. Getting kicked out of the house because of how they identify and who they love, and having nowhere to go, being thrown with oil, being chased out of communities, and they have nowhere to go. You then go to a shelter, and you let's say you are a trans woman or you're a trans man. Which shelters do you go to? Which shelters will you be able to not only be accepted but feel safe? So yes, we have been speaking to people on the ground, not just this year, but for some years, and saying what are the challenges and how can we as government assist you? And this is one of the ways I believe we can assist members of the LGBTIQA plus community.
All right. And Nazli, in fact, let me just throw in one more question. Would segregating members of the LGBTQ community not serve the unintended purpose of othering them?
No, absolutely. I understand that argument, and I would say we should never other anybody else. But unfortunately, we have to look at the realities. The reality is that there's too much violence aimed at members of the LGBTIQA+, because of intolerance, because of not being accepted. So I'm not saying everybody of the LGBT must go to the shelter, everybody else must go to the shelter. Not at all. I'm saying give people the choice. Give people the choice to say, okay, I identify as a woman, I'm going to go to a women's shelter. Or I identify as a man, I'm going to go to a male shelter. Sure. But give that person a choice to say, okay, you can choose whichever shelter you want to go to, but there is a safe haven for you, for members of the LGBT that you can go to. I'm not saying it's a must. This is not a totalitarian or anything. It's simple choice.
Nazli, thank you so much. I've got to thank you for your time. Nazli Sharif is a DA Gauteng, member of the provincial legislature, but also spokesperson on social development, raising that interesting discussion, policy proposal there in as far as homeless shelters are concerned in the province.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning, it's a high volume Wednesday. Here's the big delays. Pretoria, N1 South, the breakdown between the N4 and Linwood Road. Coming through from Storenville Road, you'll pick up some heavy traffic. Crash on Joburg's N3 North before Marlborough Drive, opposite Alexandra. So very heavy from Galulis up through Edenvale side. And a crash on the side of the N1 North at Bayers Nordia. That's enough to slow traffic back as far as 14th Avenue. So Soweto through to Randburg under pressure. The N12 queuing passing Lenasia on on your way to Joburg. Big queues down towards the Golden Highway exit, and the usual bottlenecks, probably a bit heavier than normal through the Crown. The Mike 1 from Ormonde through to Empire Road, the M2 from Joe Slovo Drive already backlogging as well. Coming into Durban off the south coast, the M2 at Tweedy Hill looking all jammed up. The M7 going in towards Pinetown is quite slow, just approaching the N3 highway, and just back to the N2 after the roadwork delays moving through Spaghetti Junction. There's a vehicle changing a tyre, blocking a lane just by Queen Nandi, so that's an additional delay heading north on the N2. Cape Town, M3's at Constantia. The N2 is at the airport, already backlogging through towards Hospital Bend, effectively. Lots of traffic on the N1. It's under pressure from Pluttercliff Hill right through to Coburg Interchange, and the N7 remains on a heavy one this morning, queuing up from Vangate Mall territory all the way through the M2 bridge, up past Langa. Big queues right through to Beaufort Circle in the Epping area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Tulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
Let's stay with interesting policy proposals by political formations. The ANC Youth League in KwaZulu-Natal is calling for hijacked buildings in cities like Durban to be converted to student accommodation. The structure's president, that is the national president, president of the ANC Youth League, Colin Malachi, led a march to the Durban City Hall on Monday, protesting against high youth unemployment, corruption and illegal migration. The party's Youth League is calling on President Cyril Ramaphosa and his government to prioritize the country's reindustrialization, address unemployment, and support youth in business, or else face an escalation of protests. The ANC Youth League spokesperson Zama Kanyase joins me now for that conversation. Zama, good morning. Thank you for your time. So it was a multi-pronged march on Monday, but what was the central message and the takeaway that you wanted to send to government with that march?
Good morning. Thank you for having us. The central message was that we need to start rebuilding our country, basically. That begins with making sure that young people are in jobs, they are working, because if you have young people who are sitting idly, then you are likely to have challenges such as crime, you are likely to have challenges such as drug abuse and poverty continuing. But also the reason why we added issues such as addressing the issues of crime and safety, and there are practical solutions that are right under our noses. Part of the reasons why there were even those suggestions about the fact that we need to keep our towns safe, we need to clean them up, and we need to make them useful so that they also even contribute in the rebuilding of our economy, because no one wants to have businesses in towns that are unsafe. So part of the things that were suggested was the fact that there are buildings that are unaccounted for. Some of them are being hijacked by foreigners and so forth, and undocumented foreigners, might I add, let me say that. And they become unsafe havens. That is where human trafficking is happening. That is where drugs are being stored, that are being sold in our streets. So we have solutions. Our government must revamp those buildings, make them safe, and use them as student accommodations. I just heard the conversation you're having earlier. They can also be used as homeless shelters. They can be used for progressive things that are going to actually help our country.
Yeah. So listening to the conversation around the march that you held and your demands, there was a certain tone that sort of suggested that your structure and your constituency cannot wait anymore. Is this based on a sense that not enough is being done by the government of President Cyril Ramaphosa?
Well, we speak the language of young people as the ANC Youth League. And as much as we know the progress reports that are given to sittings of government, we know that they are doing 1, 2, and 3. There are these time frames. But young people on the ground want to feel change now. We have a Congress theme as this executive committee of the ANC Youth League that says economic freedom and social change now, not later, because young people are living now in the now, they are suffering now, and they want solutions now. So our duty is not to explain that there is a long-term plan, there's a 10-year plan, there's a 5-year plan. We want to see change starting to happen now so that young people will begin to feel that actually something is happening. Yes, we do sit in meetings because we must give hope to young people that we are not just speaking on the leading marches on the streets. We do sit in meetings with those in government. We do hear their reports. We do make our recommendations, but it's not going to end there. They need to feel the pressure because we need to see things starting to happen.
So there's talk of you saying that the government of President Ramaphosa and the government of national unity must start to put actions around the reindustrialization and the issues around dealing with youth unemployment, or else face more protests. What for you would signal that we've reached that stage where there was talk of you even leading a march to the union buildings?
Yes, we are going to lead a march to the union buildings. Actually, also on the 11th of October, we have a march to the JSE because we understand that even the private sector must come on board. But we want to make it clear to government, the government that we have, which is an outcome of the voters. We no longer have an ANC-led government that is outright majority. We now have a government of national unity. We want to make it clear to all those parties who have been given responsibility that as young people, we don't have time to listen to them fighting over space. We don't have time for them to waste whilst we watch them try and coordinate themselves. They need to get to work. So I think we need to make that very clear. They need to know from day one that we don't have time for personalities or for policy clashes and so forth. What we need is to start seeing change happening because people have voted. As much as it's a new way of leading of government, because it's new for everyone, but they need to get it right and get it right fast because challenges are escalating in our country. So that is the message that we are trying to put across as the ANC Youth League. And this is something that we even communicate to our own leadership of the ANC, that they need to get moving.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time this morning. That is Zama Kanyase, who speaks on behalf of the ANC Youth League, talking about the demands they are making of the government of national unity around the need to reindustrialize the economy of South Africa, deal with youth unemployment, as well as address issues of safety and issues of unlawful migration. You do get a sense from her tone and the tone of the rest of the leadership of the ANC Youth League that they are almost putting government on terms. And of course, you did hear her addressing that issue, which I know many will say, but they sit with the ANC leaders. Why don't they tell them directly? You heard there from Zama Kanyase that they do tell them directly that they are losing their patience and these issues need to be addressed immediately. You can, of course, weigh in on the conversations that have been put on the table by both the DA in Gauteng, but also the ANC Youth League around the economy. And that brings us to 7 a.m., time for us to check in with Ann Musa with the latest news.
In our top stories, judge to give reasons for rejecting Zuma's bid to remove Advocate Downer, and South Africa to continue genocide crime case against Israel. Good morning. Former President Jacob Zuma will today hear the reasons behind Judge Nkosinathi Celi's dismissal of his application for the recusal of lead prosecutor in his corruption case, Advocate Billy Downer, made earlier this year at the Pietermaritzburg High Court. This as Zuma plans to apply for leave to appeal the judgment made in March. The judge initially said he would hand down his reasons at the end of the criminal trial. However, Zuma's legal team brought an application about a week ago for the reasons to be made available now. Zuma, together with the French arms company Thalys, are facing charges including fraud and corruption in connection with South Africa's arms deal in the 90s. Dries Liebenberg reports.
The case was adjourned in May because at the time, former President Jacob Zuma's legal team did not have time to consult with him in the run-up to the general elections. A pre-trial conference normally deals with issues such as what evidence is being placed in dispute and the trial dates. Meanwhile, Zuma's legal team filed an application for leave to appeal Judge Nkosinathi Celi's dismissal of their special plea that lead prosecutor, Advocate Billy Downer, should recuse himself due to alleged bias.
The South African government says it will file new arguments in their case to the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, in The Hague next month. South Africa intends to provide facts and evidence to prove that Israel is committing the crime of genocide in Palestine. It says there has been no request by any government to drop the case it has brought before the ICJ. Presidential spokesperson Vincent Magwenya says this case will continue until the court makes a finding.
South Africa intends to provide facts and evidence to prove that Israel is committing the crime of genocide in Palestine. Thus far, there has been no request by any government to drop the case that the South African government has brought before the ICJ. This case will continue until the court makes a finding. While the case is in progress, we hope that Israel will abide by the court's provisional orders issued to date.
The ANC's Deputy President Paul Mashatile says utterances by the SACP's General Secretary Solly Mapahila that the ANC has sold out by including the DA in the Government of National Unity are unfortunate. Mapahila has maintained the ANC would rather have gone into the GNU with the MK Party and the EFF. Speaking to SABC News politics editor, Mashatile says the views expressed by Mapahila are not those of the SACP.
Well, there must be something troubling Solly, but not the SACP.
But he is the General Secretary of the SACP.
Yeah, but he's not the SACP.
Have you engaged him? As the ANC?
The SG is calling a meeting of what we call the Alliance Secretariat so that we can hear Comrade Solly out. He's unhappy about something, but the party has not come out to us and say this is a sellout. There are ministers of the SACP in the cabinet. They would have walked away.
Further afield, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris have clashed on the economy, abortion and immigration during a pivotal televised presidential debate, the first time the two candidates have ever met face-to-face. The BBC's Tom Bateman has more.
The ABC hosts introduced the debate, calling it historic and the most consequential moment of this campaign. Then Kamala Harris and Donald Trump walked onto the stage from opposite sides. Ms. Harris strode over to Mr. Trump's podium and offered her hand, which he shook. She said, "Let's have a good debate. Nice to see you. Have fun," said Mr. Trump, seeming slightly taken unawares by the move. The debate has started on the economy, an area of vulnerability for Ms. Harris, as Mr. Trump tried to link the vice president to what he portrays as the failure of the Biden administration. She blamed him for having left what she called a mess she said they had to clear up.
Meanwhile, Harris sought to remind the audience about Trump's various court cases.
When you deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
Recapping the top story, former President Jacob Zuma will today hear the reasons behind Judge Nkosinathi Celi's dismissal of his application for the recusal of lead prosecutor in his corruption case, Advocate Billy Downer, made earlier this year at the Pietermaritzburg High Court. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Heavy coming out of Pretoria with a breakdown on the M1 South at Linwood Road. Traffic is now parking all the way back through to Stormful. That'd be one worth avoiding. Also behind that, the N4 coming in from Watermeyer. Very heavy. Big problems getting off the N4 and basically turning into that traffic on the N1 going south. It's heavy around that part of the PTA this morning. Joburg badly backed up as well. Traffic on the N3. It's a crash at before you get to Marlborough Drive, but you got the combo of heavy traffic through Bedford View and then that collision. So basically from Elands Interchange, traffic all the way through this morning, right up into sort of Limbro Park territory. Durban, the breakdown on the N2 North at Queen Nundy Drive. That's still causing problems. So you'll queue from the M7 through Spaghetti Junction, then you're back into the traffic straight away from about Inunda Road as you go up to that breakdown. In Cape Town looking fairly heavy as well. Marine Drive, a good indicator of that. Sunningdale through to Milnerton jammed up. And the M3, we saw this highway queuing all day yesterday from Constantia up towards Paradise Road. It's heavy, but again, just watch for sort of daytime delays on that route routing in through that Newlands area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, it's soccer. The Bafana coach Hugo Bruce saying the Lord was with us as Bafana snatch victory in dramatic fashion. And rugby news, the Stormers will be without Stephen Kitchoff for the start of their URC campaign. Details around 7:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
7 minutes after 7, it's the second hour of the Wednesday edition of the Morning Brief here on SAFM. From Auckland Park, Johannesburg, to wherever you're hearing us from this morning, in every city, town, dorpy, kasi, village, hamlet, from the heartland to the hinterland. Good morning, South Africa. This is the Morning Brief, and I'm Thulasizwe Simelane, here to deliver it to you. Coming up within this hour, a bit later on, we will continue with the interesting policy intervention proposals by the various political formations. We'll be talking to the EFF's MP, Sinawo Tambo. They are concerned about the status and state of pension funds that, there's been a revelation by the pension funds adjudicator that as the two-port system is taking root and taking hold, actually weaknesses are being exposed where patterns where some employers would deduct from their employees' salaries but not pay over to administrators, as now these workers are trying to access their savings through the two-port system. They're finding out that actually their pension contributions are not up to date. The EFF's Sinawo Tambo will weigh in on that. They are concerned about that situation. That's coming up just before 8 a.m. But before we even get there in this hour, we will delve into one aspect that seems to be a bastardization of what was or is policy in as far as preferential procurement is concerned. The demand for a percentage of the value of a construction project by these so-called construction mafias. It seems that it is a bastardization at times of what was the regulations, certainly from 2017, for 30% of a project to be subcontracted, so for work to be done by historically disadvantaged designated groupings. That was corrupted as a concept and bastardized and hijacked by some of these criminal syndicates, and continues to be, it would seem, as the wave of extortion cases escalates. So we'll have that conversation with Business Against Crime coming up within the next few minutes. Good morning, South Africa. This is the Morning Brief on SAFM.
Another day, another set of challenges. In a world driven by shifting demands, environment, social and governance, what guides your decision-making? We need a new generation of ethical leaders who have their eye on the bigger picture, who are not daunted by change, but inspired by it. Let Wits Business School guide your leadership journey. With our postgraduate programs, you can play a role in Africa's sustainable future. Apply today and make 2025 your year of impact. Visit wbs.ac.za for more.
So why should I use We Buy Cars if I want to sell my vehicle?
Because We Buy Cars buys cars.
But will I get the right price?
Of course. We Buy Cars buys thousands of vehicles and knows exactly what every vehicle is worth. Their buyers deliver exceptional service and pay you immediately.
And how do I know what they'll pay for my vehicle?
It's easy. Visit webuycars.co.za or use the We Buy Cars app. Follow the simple steps and voila, you'll know your car's value in no time. We Buy Cars. Quick, easy, the best.
We've upgraded. Our new GIS-linked national address database lets us connect with you better than ever before. By visualizing licensed and unlicensed households nationwide, we can ensure timely communication. Our payment reminders are a crucial tool to help you stay compliant and avoid penalties, empowering you to take proactive steps. Efficient electronic communication helps us collect fees seamlessly, bolstering the SABC's mandate in line with Section 27 of the Broadcasting Act. TV licenses, pay yours, make a difference.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
So calls for government to deal finally and decisively with the phenomenon of extortion and the so-called construction mafias have reached fever pitch in the last few weeks. On Monday, the Johannesburg Metro Police officers arrested 4 men who were allegedly obstructing access to a construction site in the Johannesburg CBD and demanding that workers pay them 1,000 rand per day in order for the project to be allowed to continue. This demand seems to have echoes of a similar one that has been a feature of the activities of the so-called construction mafias. The apparent bastardization of government's now set aside preferential procurement policy regulations that previously dictated that 30% of public procurement contracts be subcontracted to designated historically disadvantaged groups. It's a mouthful, I know, but we'll unpack it in a moment, and we'll do that with Roelof Viljoen, who is the project manager for Business Against Crime South Africa. Mr. Viljoen, good morning, and thank you for your time. So when these groups make the demand to be paid 30% of the value of a project or revenues from a project, it seems to us that it is a bastardization of a certain legitimate policy that either existed or continues to exist. Which one is it? Is it a bastardization as far as you understand it? And how widespread is this?
Good morning, SAFM. Thanks for having us. Yeah, a criminal will often use a half-truth to convince you to talk. And that's what this is. I mean, it's similar to a criminal showing you a nice watch and saying he wants to sell it to you. So the idea of the 30% preferential procurement policy is just used to get you to talk to them. And then obviously if whoever they're talking to is not well versed with what the limitation of the policy is, they might just convince you to talk to them. And the moment that's happening, the chances are there that you compromised in terms of them having access to your site and seeing what's going on. So it's a door that they kick open to talk to you.
And how widespread is this phenomenon as far as you understand it as Business Against Crime? Particularly, it would seem it manifests in the construction space?
Well, construction is vulnerable. That's why it's well known in that area. But as you've seen reported, a whole widespread part of business is affected by this, and it includes. I mean, if you look at the definition, and it includes protection fees that was requested in the Western Cape. That's well in the news as well. So it is a method of using violence to get gain from it. And in terms of widespread, there's some provinces that have a lesser reported rate. But I'm sure if you go into rural areas and you really talk to the people, there will be acknowledgement. I mean, part of the issue with crime it's not South Africa specific, is that people will see certain actions as normal and not even think of it as a crime. It will be part of their life in saying must pay something where it might not be a legal right and there might be no legal framework for that.
So how do we close that gap then, that information gap? Because my sense is that there's a bit of an information gap and uncertainty in the wake of the court, the Constitutional Court, striking down the 2017 regulations on preferential procurement that had that 30% requirement. Then they were replaced by 2022 regulations, and then now we have the public procurement bill that is being processed. In that interim, it would seem there's an information gap. What needs to happen to close that so that it's not exploited by criminals?
As far as I understand, I'm no legal representative. There's a bit of a difference between the policy and the regulations. Of course, policy is difficult to enforce because it's a longer chain of documentation that you have to follow, whereas it's a lot easier to enforce if it's in regulations. But the awareness part, and that goes for a broader sense as well, is communities be informed what is their rights and what is right and wrong. Of course, part of the challenge is that that correct is not the majority choice. It's sometimes a community will be convinced to actually act illegally because there's of the lack of knowledge. And that comes back to our leaders being made aware, and that it's a lengthy process. Well, it's something that we have to build from childhood.
Yeah.
In what is right and wrong.
Before I let you go, Mr. Falyoun, let me just bring in one of our listeners, Percy in Matlosana, who wants to weigh in specifically on this point. Percy, good morning. You want to weigh in on the issue of 30% and how it relates to the extortion syndicates.
Morning to Lasizo and your guest. We know them, those people who are taking 30%, and the sad thing is what? The members of our government are in the NEC members, and if you are not paid them 30%, you are not going to work. There is a guy called Khadina Bokao, is the member of Sanko NEC here in Northwest. If you are not paid them 30%, you are not going to work. He owns forum called Heartful Business Forum.
Sure, that's
in Northwest.
That's a very serious allegation to make against this particular individual and the organization they represent. Are you able to back it up with facts?
Yes, because we know them here in Northwest. Even I have a video here into me that is talking about this forum. If you are not paying them 30%, you are not going to work. We don't have service delivery here in Northwest because of Heartful Business Forum. We raise those issues. ANC doesn't do nothing. It's something normally. Even if we can audit their lifestyle, they are not working. They are driving the expensive BMW. It doesn't have a salary, those guys, because of their threatening those service providers who are getting tender. And if you don't give them that 30%, you are not going to work. We know them. Even most of the people here, service provider, they leave their job without finishing those jobs because of those Heartful Business Forum.
All right, I've got to thank you, Percy. Please do send that video to us. Obviously, we now need to give a right of reply to the individual that you mentioned there and the Heartful Business Forum that you're talking about and whose activities you're saying are at the heart of some of the extortion activities. Mr. Falyoun, I've got to thank you for your time. I don't think we have time for you to weigh in on what Percy raised there. Thank you, though, for your time and your insights here on the Morning Brief on SAFM. That was Rulof Falyoun, who is Project Manager for Business Against Crime South Africa.
Stay on top of all meaningful, top trending stories right here on SAFM. Leading the conversation.
A legal showdown is shaping up between the Eastern Cape Premier Oscar Mabuyane and the Abatembu King Buyelekhaya Dalindyebo. Mabuyane has laid crimen injuria charges against Dalindyebo after the king reportedly accused the premier of being in cahoots with extortionists terrorizing communities in the province. Mabuyane has rejected the claim, saying it is a distraction from the work he and his government are leading to rid the province of the activities of extortionists. Let's speak now to the king's spokesperson, Princess Ntando Dalindyebo, who joins me now for that conversation. So, King Dalindyebo dared Premier Mabuyane to challenge the claims of the premier's involvement with so-called quote-unquote extortion boys in court. It would seem the premier is seeking to do exactly that. What's the king's reaction?
Hello, Buti Kunjani.
Ndiphilile kunjani sis?
Ndiyaphila nami. With regards to the premier's lawsuit, I just have to tell you that the king is not very entertained by it because we are busy fighting the extortion here in Mthatha. This entire time, the premier's presence hasn't been visible. Instead, he has been quiet. He has been making promises to help out, and we really haven't seen much of him. It was ironic that he did eventually show his face when the main person that he was accused of working with actually passed away. So now it seems like he is trying to sway the attention away from the actual case and bring it back to politics. This is not a political issue. This is an issue with the people, and they are being abused.
But you and the king surely can't be surprised by Premier Mabuyane challenging you, because even the king did dare the premier to say, I dare him to challenge me in court because I can prove that he's working with extortion boys. Can he? Can he prove that the premier is working with so-called extortion boys?
The king stands by what he said when he said he can prove it. He says he can prove it, and he stands by that. He hasn't moved. He hasn't shaken. He says he can prove it.
And what kind of proof would that be? Just out of interest.
No, I can't disclose that. Such information hasn't been shared with me, and I definitely cannot share it because it is a legal matter after all.
When you look at this and how this is playing out, is it helpful for the monarch to be in this kind of a battle with the state in the form of the premier, when the province and the people of the province, some of them pledge allegiance to the king, are facing the kind of problems that they face? Is it helpful at all?
No, it's not helpful, but then it's nothing new. It's something that's been going on for a very long time, except it wasn't really in public. So it's nothing new. It's something that we have been doing. It's something that has been going on between the king, MEC Ngata, and Oscar Mabuyane. So for them to just decide, we're going to take it public, that's fine. That's fine. As a kingdom, we are prepared. We will be in court, and we will stand for what we were saying.
So yesterday, there was a bit of confusion about whether or not the king was aware of the charges being laid by Premier Mabuyane, and I'm not sure if there was also a question about those laid by MEC Ngata. You are now confirming, are you, that you are aware and you stand by what the king said and you will defend yourselves in court?
We still haven't been served by the police officially. But as of now, we are still hearing from the news and as well as social media that this is what's been happening. But for now, we have no official word from the police.
All right. Before we part, Princess Ntando, I do need to raise a separate matter. There was commentary, and in my view, and from what I picked up, quite positive about the role the king played in getting that school reopened a few weeks ago. So that was a plus and a positive on the side of the king. But I did see some comments that some people have said are quite disturbing, relating to the king saying that, obviously rightly urging people to stand up against extortionists, which is correct and no problems with that. But where I saw commentary that says this is problematic was when there seemed to be a call to violence, calling for the burning of houses of lawyers that represent extortionists and rapists, and words being used around magistrates that say balibambe lingashoni, almost a threat that says they must be careful and beware of something that might happen. Surely that language is there's no room for that language, certainly from a king.
But sometimes such things are necessary.
No, they're not.
The king is a very emotional speaker.
Yeah, we all are emotional speakers, yes. But you don't hear us calling for homes of people to be burnt and saying to people, he's a king.
But he didn't tell people to burn people's houses down.
There's actually a video that's where he's captured saying those exact words that say, and I'm not detracting from the work that he has done, and as you heard, I did acknowledge that. I'm just pointing to what some are saying is quite problematic when he says those lawyers that want to gain money by any means, it's my translation because he spoke in Xhosa, and preferably it would have been better to have this conversation directly with him, and perhaps in future we might be able to do that, to hear him explain those comments. I'm saying to you, those comments that say those lawyers that seem to want to get money from every quarter by representing rapists and extortionists, ingati their houses zingacha qala or something to that effect, their houses should be burned. And those magistrates abateketayo, when we talk about these issues, balibambele ingashoni, something that's almost a subtle warning. That can only mean one thing. It means exactly what was said.
It does, Nebuti, but then I have to tell you that my father still stands by what he said. And everything he said there, he's unapologetic for. Because the situation needs that kind of extreme language for people to get the message across. Because if you had been there at that meeting and seen how many people were there, because we called a meeting and didn't expect to see so many people there, so many people affected by this issue. Everybody was crying. People were in borderline tears. People were angry. The fact that we as a family were also being threatened, people saying that the people that were going to that threatened to kill my father, they sent out voice notes saying it's going to start, and that's why he was so heavily protected by the police. It's a war between the kingdom, between the kingdom and the people, and these extortionists.
All right, Princess Ntando Dalindyebo, I've got to thank you for your time this morning. And I must say that in fairness to you, these are comments that are better explained, I would say. You are the spokesperson for the king, but I do have to acknowledge that sometimes the words of a speaker are better explained by that speaker themselves. Thank you, though, for putting forward your perspective in as far as the court cases and that showdown that seems to be looming between the king and the Premier, Oscar Mabuyane, as well as the MEC Ngata in the Eastern Cape. That is Princess Ntando Dalindyebo, who speaks on behalf of King Buyelekaya Dalindyebo. They're weighing in on the issues of extortion and some of the comments that have been doing the rounds, certainly on social media, that are coming from King Dalindyebo.
Call Tulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Morning, Tulas, it's Chris in Cambertown. But the whole issue of shelters and LGBT women, abused women in particular, speaks a lot about our society's intolerance and inability to confront the causal issues. Because really, why should people really be taken out of their comforts of their homes to be placed elsewhere? As society, maybe we need to reflect and say, how do we accommodate and ensure that communities, families are safe places, especially for women and children?
Morning there in the studio, as well as the SAFM listeners. I'm just very disappointed with the ANC stance. They are such opportunists. I was listening, this was the proposal by the KwaZulu-Natal Minister of Public Works, saying that they need to convert these into students' accommodation and whatever that needs to be done. And now they are, this is stealing one's intellectual property. The ANC is out of order. I haven't seen anything like this in the lifetime. Actually, the ANC is such a joke.
Hi, Tulasizwe. The princess is not helping you or helping other listeners. I watched the video of the king. When he says that it means that they must have their own problems as well. They must face the same problems. It doesn't incite violence or burning of their houses.
All right, that is a fair point that I'm willing to acknowledge. If that's how, that last point, I'm more than willing to acknowledge that that perhaps it may be lost to non-isiXhosa speakers such as myself, that when you say it could be a figure of speech. I'm willing to accept that, but I would be even more comforted hearing from the king himself. But it doesn't also explain, though, to that caller that sent that voice note. It still doesn't explain the latter comment that has to do with the magistrates about tegetisayo when we talk about these issues, and I don't know how to translate that, and saying balbambele ngachoni. That's that I would want to hear a bit more being said about that. But I thank you for explaining the figure of speech that may not be familiar to a non-isiXhosa speaker such as myself. It's 7:31. Let's check in with Ann Musa with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, the Department of Correctional Services say efforts are being made to find ways to stop cell phones from being smuggled into prisons. This amid allegations that serious crimes are being orchestrated from prison facilities. Former President Jacob Zuma will today hear the reasons behind Judge Nkosinathi Cili's dismissal of his application for the recusal of lead prosecutor in his corruption case, Advocate Billy Downer, made earlier this year at the Pietermaritzburg High Court. And a court in Brazil has awarded the far-right former President Jair Bolsonaro and his wife more than $2,500 in compensation for claims made by his successor. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Heavy this morning coming through Pretoria. It's a broken down truck blocking 2 lanes around the Linwood Road exit. Traffic is now all the way back through to Montana, back to Sefako Makato. So if you normally come out of Montana, off Sefako Makato onto the N1, you'd be straight into a wall of traffic. Trying to avoid doing that, pick up some alternative routes. Behind that, the N4 really struggling from just after Simon Vermuten. There's some real issues trying to get off the N4 into sort of Pretoria and then turn onto the N1. You're basically turning into a wall of traffic. N1 further down through Midrand, busy but pretty normal, I would think, from Brockfontein down to New Road. Yeah, that's what it is these days. The crash on the N3 North at Limbro Park, that is out of the way. Traffic staying busy between Germiston and Edenvale, but further up it is moving again. Durban, the breakdown of Queen Nandi Drive is being cleared. The issues around Tweedy Hill are being cleared as well, but in the middle of that, you've just got a backlog of traffic going very slowly from the M7 up the N2 towards Westwood Mall. And on the opposite side, there's now a crash before Spaghetti Junction, so coming through from Umgena Road down towards Spaghetti and Sevi. The M7, a lot of traffic again from Hans Detman up over St John's Avenue Bridge into Pinetown. Cape Town, Hill-Besson looking very slow in the sort of Plattekloof Panorama area. N7's got a load of traffic. Vangate Mall up to Beaufort Circle through Lunga and Epping. More queues into Voortrekker Road, more queues up to Bosmansdam Road. Traffic all over that junction today. And a lot of pressure around the junction of Stellenbosch Arterial 35th and Robert Sebukwe just north of the airport. All of those routes under pressure into that intersection. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, is there a reason why Hugo Bruce, and is that how you say it? I hear you saying it much better than I do. Is there a reason why the Bafana coach is seeking divine intervention after those 2 qualifier games?
I don't know if he's referring to Lord Talent. Because if he's talking about Talent Mbata, then I can tell you, yeah, definitely the Lord is with us. Because 2 last-minute miracles in a row from Talent Mbata, sealing the deal for Bafana. They had that dramatic 3-2 win against South Sudan yesterday. But Coach Hugo Bruce didn't hold back. He's highlighting the lack of domestic football as a key reason for Bafana's sluggishness, saying they weren't sharp enough to face aggressive teams like Uganda and South Sudan. Still, thanks to Talent Mbata's last-minute heroics, Bafana sits second in Group K with crucial matches against Congo coming up in October. Let's hear more from Coach Bruce.
This team of Sudan is playing with a heart, with dedication. They have a lot of tall players, and yes, when you are going to play in your 16, then you ask for the high balls, and the defense was not aggressive enough. First half, we could have scored more. So again, we put ourselves in problems today. But at the end, it was a happy end for us, and I'm very happy with it.
In the other match, Zimbabwe and Cameroon drew 0-0 in their Africa Cup of Nations qualification Group J match at the Mandela National Stadium in Uganda. Rwanda and Nigeria cancelled each other out in their latest Group D Africa Cup of Nations qualifier, following a 0-0 stalemate at the Amahoro Stadium yesterday. Egypt claimed a 4-0 win over Botswana, and that's a Group C match, took place at the Oberditani Chilume Stadium in Francistown. And Kenya ended their latest 2025 Africa Cup of Nations qualification assignment on a positive note. They had a 2-1 victory against Namibia in Group J. All happened at Orlando Stadium last night. Elsewhere, Harry Kane celebrated his 100th cap with 2 goals as England beat Finland 2-0. In the Nations League, the Republic of Ireland slipped to their 2nd consecutive defeat of the UEFA Nations League after a 2-0 loss against Greece at the Aviva Stadium. Stadium. Now, the rugby news, the Stormers, they'll be without Stephen Kitchoff for the start of their URC campaign after the Springbok prop suffered a neck ligament injury. John Dobson confirmed the news during a URC media roundtable yesterday, the latest injury to the DHL Stormers squad. This means, at the very least, Kitchoff will miss the Stormers' season opening tour, which gets underway against the Ospreys on the 28th of September. And finally, Formula One, Adrian Newey, widely regarded as one of Formula One's greatest design minds, is set to join Aston Martin in 2025 after a run at Red Bull, known for his unmatched ability to navigate regulation changes and build championship-winning cars. Newey will lead Aston Martin's 2026 car development. He talks about his respect as well for world champion Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso.
I've always had a huge amount of respect for Fernando and for Lewis. It wasn't possible to work with both of them, different teams, so I had to choose one. But Fernando, I mean, I think he's just a mightily impressive driver and individual. And like me, he's been in the sport for a long time now, but he still remains fully motivated, and he's just such a character.
That's a wrap of your sport. More top of the hour for the Morning Brief. I'm Sai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
And for that, let's go to Ndauling Lechela for that update. And Ndauling, you have some company news and you're looking at the food company Libstar. Why are they seeking to simplify their portfolio? And they're making progress in that regard.
So what they're doing is that they're trying to exit most of their non-food businesses. This, of course, just to streamline it so they can focus specifically on their food segments. So in an attempt to do that, it's dumped another business, Chet Chemicals. This is a household and personal care business, and it will be acquired by Mithra Tech South Africa, a subsidiary of the investment holding company Movest Group. Now, Libstar also exited its current beverage manufacturing operation by closing the Franschhoek-based Chamonix spring water plant last month. This now leaves the group's portfolio with predominantly perishable products such as dairy, value-added meat, and convenience meals, as well as ambient products that include dry and wet condiments, meal ingredients, baked goods, snacks, and spreads. Now, their products include the likes of Denny mushrooms, Lancewood yogurt, and cheese, as well as Cape Foods. The announcement on its streamlining efforts come alongside its half-year results, where it delivered a 5% rise in revenue, translating into a 32% jump in earnings. This was due to an upbeat performance from its ambient foods division. I spoke to an analyst about the numbers, Roy Mutoni from Sanlam Investments, and he said the top and bottom line growth were driven by higher selling prices and not necessarily volumes. This just reflective of the current economic environment where consumers are spending less. The group did confirm that it raised prices during the reporting period as its margin slightly improved as well. This, it said, was to account for elevated inflation rates during the period. Volumes, however, were tepid, falling 0.2%.
And more company news. Attack has delivered performance, and you're saying it's upbeat, and it was boosted by the retail performance of the retail property portfolio.
That's right. It seems like more retailers are finding value in opening stores at Mall of Africa. This is a mall that Attack owns. That's as vacancies at that mall are below 1%, giving Attack an advantage, particularly when it comes to pricing power. And so the high demand has worked in the company's favor. During the 4-year period, distributable income jumped 20%. That's just one of the measures used to measure success or progress of a property company in South Africa. Attack's CEO, Jackie van Niekerk, says the firm grew strongly on the back of more contributions from Mall of Africa as it bought the remaining 20% share of the mall, making it the sole owner of it. The company's overall retail portfolio also doing well, with rent increases of 6.8%, which which is better than most of its competitors. Now, out of 205 retail leases, about 95% are getting higher rent when they renew. Even if one lease has lower rent, it's offset by 20 other leases that are renewed with a 6 to 7% increase. Now, TAG also owns office, residential, and logistics properties. On the residential side, it's eyeing more projects from Waterfall City. Meanwhile, its office portfolio took a knock, recording a negative renewal reversion of 17.2%. Despite that, traders were quite pleased with the company's overall performance, with some even saying that it's poised for even further growth.
And then finally, Ndaoleng, you're looking at Asian markets once again, as well as U.S. futures, and recapping the JSE and the Rand.
Let's start off in Asia. Those markets slipping deeper into the red. Traders there digesting economic data from South Korea. Unemployment fell to 2.4% in August, the lowest level since 1999 when the data series commenced. Markets seem to have shrugged off the good news from that front, focusing on China's recent trade data. Exports grew, hitting a near 1.5-year high, but imports disappointed, highlighting the weak domestic demand. With that, we're seeing China's Shanghai index down 0.9%. The biggest loser there being Japan's Nikkei, shedding 1.8%. In Wall Street, futures in the red ahead of consumer inflation numbers. Analysts expect inflation to slow to 2.6% in August from 2.9% recorded in July. This just edging, meaning that it would be edging closer to the Fed's target of 2%. We'll get those numbers later today. Local traders also eyeing that print. Ahead of it, the JSE closed mostly in positive territory, up 0.25%. Yesterday's manufacturing print boding well for sentiment here at home. That, however, not really filtering through to the Rand. Local currency trading at 17.90 to the dollar. A slight improvement, though, from about 17.93 that was seen about an hour ago.
All right, thank you for that. That's Ndaoleng Lechela. She's back with one more update for you here on the morning brief at about 20 minutes or so before the opening of the JSE.
Africa Update on SAFM.
Let's talk to Advocate Sipho Mantula. Good morning to you, Raz. So we start in Libya this morning. We all know how long it takes sometimes for a flood-hit region to recover. And it seems that's the situation in Libya's Derna region.
Refreshing morning to that and Jumbo Africa to the listeners. Indeed, to that, remember that last year we were dealing with the Derna situation in the eastern coastal city of Libya, Tripoli, where there was the burst of the dam. Others they say it was negligence, that post-Gaddafi's presidency and governance, there was no proper the maintenance of dealing with this dam that busted and killed almost 11,000 people and 10,000 went missing. Remember that the UN was dealing with that mess of the Derna that happened last year in September, and that is one of the heritage sites. If you look in the North African part, it is also linked to the heritage of the Turkish, the heritage of the Arabs. But like I said to you, Tulas, this was caused after the post-2011 situation in Libya that has caused for the government to be negligent not to focus on the Derna. And you remember both Khalifa Haftar and the Prime Minister, they went on and said they sympathize with the families, but even today other families have lost their loved ones. They cannot even trace them until today.
Sure. So while Libya is dealing with the aftermath of a flood from about a year ago, Algeria and Morocco dealing with deadly floods right now.
That is quite true. Remember, we've been pushing Algeria. Besides, Algeria went to the elections, but there are floods there happening even in Morocco, Rabat. We might spoke about Casablanca Stadium to us, but the reality is that we have many people who are swamped in their villages because of the rain, and that causes a challenge in terms of electricity, water supply. Communication also is quite difficult because it has been severely affected. Now, as you know, the government and the military in both countries, in Algiers and Morocco, they are trying by all means to assist those people who are trapped in their homes. So it is sad when you look at North Africa now with these floods coming during the month of September and towards the end of the year.
And it's a similar situation in South Sudan, the Jonglei state, you tell us.
That is quite true. When you look at Jonglei State, Bo capital, that is the land of John Garang. John Garang was born there. There are floods also in the South Sudan that are causing 700,000 people to be evacuated also in the area. This is the report that comes from the UN. But also, let's remember, whenever there are floods in South Sudan and you are next to the Nile River, it's also an opportunity for water catchment. How do you use water for hydropower? And I said to our ambassador in the South Sudan, Ambassador Mafia, I said, we come into the South Sudan yesterday to play soccer. We have brought rain, not knowing that we have brought floods actually to us when you look in the South Sudan. And we are talking about the country that has been affected by famine, but for the first time they're getting a lot of rain in Jonglei State.
Yeah, concerning developments in those regions that you've reported on this morning, Sipho. Let's talk about politics though, and talk about Angola and the president there signing into law 2 bills, and you are saying that there's some fair amount of concern about their impact on freedoms?
That is quite true, but that comes from the Human Rights Watch that says that they look at this bill on the crimes of vandalism bill, that they say it contravenes the freedom of media, expression, assembly, and also it contravenes the constitution of Angola and some international law when you look at the civil and political rights, which Angola has ratified in 1992. There's a law that the President Joao Lorenzo signed last month that they are raising questions around it, and this are the issues around protest, issues around vandalizing when there are protests. We have seen Kenya, we have seen many African countries, whenever there are protests, there's always vandalism. But it seems Angola, it is tightening their laws, but at the same time, they're also been violating international law and their own constitution, according to the Human Rights Watch. But the government of Angola is not threatened by this because they've already passed it in parliament. That's only for the president to assent it into an act of parliament.
And as far as your historical archives are concerned, your Pan-Africanism coming through very strongly, Ras, this morning. And I can say you are allowed to have 2 that you bring to the fore. One of them being about, it don't matter where you come from, as long as you're a black man, you're an African.
You're an African. That is Peter Tosh, who visited Eswatini in 1983. But today, 37 years later, Peter Tosh was gunned down at the age of 42 in Kingston, Jamaica. Peter Tosh last year was given the order from the presidency. President Ramaphosa invited his family to receive an order of Ikamanga, if I'm not wrong, the Tulas. But also I look back at the formation of the PAC military wing on this day. In 1961. So it's 63 years ago when the Azanian People's Liberation Army was formed. And the names that we'll always remember, Potakole Ballo, Vusi Make, Chafta Masemola, Zikapa Mpashele, John Yatipotela Sabelo Palmer, Jen Showa. Those are the names if you have to think of Azanian People's Liberation Army. 1994, I was in the last parade of them, Tulas in Tada, but I did not think it was 1994. It was only 1999, the last parade of the Azanian People's Liberation Army. Asante Sana Tulas, this was still leading the conversation. SAFM observing the Heritage Month.
All right, thank you for that. Sipho Mantula there with your Africa update here on the Morning Brief on SAFM.
Weeknights on S3 are anything but ordinary. BBC Primetime brings you the best of British television from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. You love drama? Then step into the world of Luther as he cracks down on criminals terrorizing the streets of London Monday to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Top Gear will have you falling in love and rolling in laughter as Jeremy Clarkson and his team take you on an automotive journey like no other, Monday to Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Channel your best entertainment with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up. S3.
The future of education is here. Impact offers 2 paths to the future. Design your own homeschooling journey with Impact Homeschooling, or let our experienced teachers guide the way with the Impact Online School. Get quality, future-forward education. Visit www.impact.co.za today to register for 2025.
Hold on to your hats, folks, because FlySafair is heading to the windy corner. That's right, we'll be flying between Cape Town and Windhoek from the 22nd of October, and tickets are on sale now. So, if stunning landscapes, diverse wildlife and vibrant culture is your thing, get to flysafair.co.za now and book flights from just 1,800 Rand. With FlySafair, Namibia is never too far away. FlySafair, for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
This September, S3 brings you thought-provoking nature dockies that will change the way in which you view the world. Prince William embarks on a global mission to ensure our world is left in a better place for future generations, championing action for the natural world and showcasing pioneering local heroes. Prince William, A Planet for Us All, airs Sunday the 15th of September. Channel your inner activist with our selection of premium dockies Sundays at 5 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Busy around Joburg's Galuli's interchange this morning. There's a collision scene as you come in from the Ekurhuleni side on the N12 and R24 route, so that's heavy. And then there's a really big backlog coming south on the N3. That is also a crash as well. So you've got a crash at Galuli's in from Ekurhuleni. You've got a crash going south, so big delays from Modderfontein Road, Edenvale side. The Mike 1 through the Crown, heavy still from Monday, Gold Reef City all the way through to Parktown. And then you stay in traffic, in fact, all the way through to Grayston Drive. A lot of complaints about lights down on Main Road at Witkoppen this morning in the top of four ways. Also Main and Lachlan out in the region there between Kyalami and Lone Hill. So a couple of real big delays to work through because of faulty lights. Pretoria's M1 South, a breakdown station. Truck 2 lanes blocked before Linwood. Traffic is super heavy leaving Pretoria. It's backed all the way through to Montana territory. Durban, a lot of pressure between Spaghetti Junction and Umgeta Road this morning both ways. You've got a crash on the southbound side, so that's holding you up coming through Umgeta Road towards Westwood Mall territory, and it's keeping the real pressure on after the roadworks at Westwood Mall on the N2 going north. Everybody having a look at it. So from the M7 right through to Umgeta Road, it's absolutely jam-packed. M13 from St John's Avenue through to Paradise Valley looking quite busy as well today. Cape Town, a crash on 35th Avenue at Lavis Drive. That's what's holding all that traffic at the top of the airport. Roberts to Bukwe, Stellenbosch Arterial, 35th Avenue, it's all jammed as a result of that crash. N7 South, moving from Frans Conradi down through towards the train bridge just before the casino through Goodwood direction Epping. That's quite an unusual queue. And if you move between Belleville and Parow, there's no traffic lights this morning on Frans Conradi and Tierberg Road. That's causing quite a big delay both directions. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Cervical cancer is the leading cause of cancer-related deaths among South African women. This is heartbreaking because cervical cancer is highly preventable through HPV vaccination and regular pap smears. Pap smears are a bit uncomfortable but painless, doesn't take too long, and detect abnormal cells before they become cancerous. Women aged 21 and older should book a pap smear at a Cancer Association of South Africa care center. Call 0800 22 6622 for info. This is an SABC supported initiative.
At Specsavers, we're committed to offering affordable and professional eye care. That's why we're offering 1,500 Rand worth of savings with our winter promotion. Get a free frame up to the value of 1,500 Rand or use the 1,500 Rand on one of our leading lens enhancements. To qualify, simply purchase a comprehensive eye examination and prescription frame and lenses. Book online or call your nearest store today. Specsavers, for affordable eye care and a whole lot more. T's and C's apply.
Hold on to your hats, folks, because FlySafair is heading to the windy corner. That's right, we'll be flying between Cape Town and Windhoek from the 22nd of October, and tickets are on sale now. So, if stunning landscapes, diverse wildlife and vibrant culture is your thing, get to flysafair.co.za now and book flights from just 1,800 Rand. With FlySafair, Namibia is never too far away. FlySafair, for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
EFC is live this Thursday. The bantamweight title is on the line, live from the World Sports Betting Arena, as the top-ranked divisional contenders and perennial fan favorites Faiz Jacobs and Vince Bembe go to war.
Oh, big right for Faiz Jacobs. The finish, and it's over. What a win. When he smells blood, he hunts mercilessly for the finish.
EFC is live this Thursday. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
So as the new two-pot retirement system unfolds, with pension funds and their administrators fielding requests for withdrawals, the Economic Freedom Fighters is flagging a concern that some employees may find that they have nothing to withdraw because their monthly contributions may have been deducted from their monthly wages over time, but not paid over to the pension funds and their administrators. The party says it has noted the call by the pension funds adjudicator Mubangolu Khaimane for workers to check whether there is any money in their respective pension funds. EFF MP Sinao Tambo joins me now for that conversation. Good morning to you, Sinao. And how widespread do you believe this problem is of pension contributions being deducted from the wages of workers but not being paid over to pension funds and their administrators?
Morning, and morning to the listeners. I think it's a very grave, concerning and cruel problem, because when we raised the alarm in January about the security sector, which had more than 2,200 private security companies that were deducting from workers' salaries on a monthly basis but not paying over to the private security sector provident fund, it was already at an amount of 6 billion and 2,000 companies were non-compliant. To dig deeper, we will discover that 172 local government municipalities have also not been compliant for periods also ranging from 6 to 240 months. So respectively, municipalities owe 1 billion to pension funds and private security companies owe 6 billion. That's a total of 7 billion of workers' money that is unaccounted for. And that is an extremely cruel thing that we raised in January. We wrote to the Minister of Finance in February to alert him of this crisis and to urge him to conduct the necessary audits and compliance measures over municipalities and private security companies to ensure that they pay back workers' money. And it's unfortunate now that it took the two-part system to come into place, where there's a semblance of mass resignations and mass retirements that now puts these pension funds under pressure to expose that those pension funds are empty.
So if I understand you correctly, you are saying that it's too late now to be raising these concerns as the pension funds adjudicator is raising them at this point.
Extremely too late. I suspect she's just trying to act as if she's been doing something, because the Financial Sector Conduct Authority released its report in September 2023 flagging the alarm. So I've been watching news reports saying that the pension adjudicator has raised the alarm. It's too little too late. She's been presiding in that office for 13 years since 2013, for 11 years rather, since 2013. And only now, when there's a crisis of new legislation that allows workers to actually interrogate whether there's money in their pension funds, is she attempting to raise the flag. I mean, there's, for example, I can give you the administrator of the Municipal Employees Pension Fund is a pension fund administrator called Akani that manages about 26 billion. And that is the CEO of that company is a person called Zamani Lechani. And he has been accused already of selling his land to the very pension fund that he's managing. And that's the type of collusion that we're trying to bring to the fore through the ad hoc committee that must investigate such matters. So where was the pension fund adjudicator when these allegations have been made since 2018? So it's too little too late for her to try to pretend to be acting. We welcome her to the fight, but she can't be saying that she's ringing the alarm after such a long period.
Lastly, now, who should be doing what at this point, given where we are? The problem has a reason. You're saying you raised it earlier. It wasn't attended to. We're here now. Who should be doing what in response?
Look, the Minister of Finance should have a long time ago and still has that opportunity to audit who local municipalities have contracted in terms of security companies that are non-compliant. The Minister of Treasury still has the opportunity to enforce compliance by municipalities, to explain and account where the money of workers is that has been unaccounted for, which is about 1 billion. We still need the National Prosecuting Authority. We still need the SRU to do convictions through referrals of cases from the FSCA, from the EFF, and of course through Parliament. So the legislative measure that we've proposed is an ad hoc committee that's going to investigate this and have powers to call pension fund administrators, asset managers, summon municipal managers from the past and the present to ensure that people who have accrued assets using stolen workers' monies are able to be arrested and those assets are seized and sold so that workers' money can be returned. What we need to avoid is municipalities that are going to attempt now to obtain loans to refurbish pension funds, and those loans will be underwritten by the state. That's something that we must avoid, because it's going to enrich the private sector and encourage corruption and make sure that there's no consequences for that.
Okay, I've got to thank you for your time. That's Sinawa Tambo, who is an EFF MP there. I've loved this theme of these interesting policy interventions and ideas coming through from some of the political formations. It's been quite refreshing. And that brings us to 8 a.m. Time now for a news update with N. Musa.
In our top stories, efforts underway to stop cell phone smuggling into prisons, and judge to give reasons for rejecting Zuma's bid to remove Advocate Downer. Good morning. The Department of Correctional Services say efforts are being made to find ways to stop cell phones from being smuggled into prisons. This amid allegations that serious crimes are being orchestrated from prison facilities. The department's statement follows earlier reports which suggested it intended to place signal and cell phone jammers near St. Albans Prison in the Nelson Mandela Bay. The department says it can't use signal jamming because ordinary citizens will be affected, as well as the emergency services. Department spokesperson Singabako Ngumalo says they are close to finding a solution.
Next to not use their cell phones just to communicate with other people, but at times they will be planning illegal activities. They will even use them maybe to go to other sites, to do other things. You will remember how embarrassing it was when it was discovered that others were even registering for the 250 social card and all other things using these mobile phones. So as a department, it is necessary that, we find a solution that can assist.
Former President Jacob Zuma will today hear the reasons behind Judge Nkosinathi Celi's dismissal of his application for the recusal of lead prosecutor in his corruption case, Advocate Billy Downer, made earlier this year at the Pietermaritzburg High Court. This as Zuma plans to apply for leave to appeal the judgment made in March. The judge initially said he would hand down his reasons at the end of the criminal trial. However, Zuma's legal team brought an application about a week ago for the reasons to be made available now. Zuma, together with the French arms company Thalys, are facing charges, including fraud and corruption in connection with South Africa's arms deal in the 90s. Dries Liebenberg reports.
The case was adjourned in May because at the time, former President Jacob Zuma's legal team did not have time to consult with him in the run-up to the general elections. A pre-trial conference normally deals with issues such as what evidence is being placed in dispute and the trial dates. Meanwhile, Zuma's legal team filed an application for leave to appeal Judge Nkosinathi Celi's dismissal of their special plea that lead prosecutor, Advocate Billy Downer, should recuse himself due to alleged bias.
The Freedom Front Plus in the Free State says the province has forfeited conditional grants worth over 3 billion rand due to the ANC's poor governance. The party states the staggering amount was lost by municipalities over the last 8 financial years. FF Plus says this happens when municipalities fail to complete projects within the stipulated times. The party's Armand Kluter says the biggest culprit was the Mangaung Metro, which had to return 1.9 billion rand to national treasury.
Free State municipalities have demonstrated time and again that project management fails under ANC leadership. The culture of forfeiture in the Free State is out of control, seeing as the provincial government also had to return 1.3 billion rand to national treasury the last 10 years. These grants were specifically meant to improve the quality of life of poor communities.
The KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi says police are looking at increasing the number of stations and officers in Pietermaritzburg due to the persistent high crime levels. The Plesislar policing precinct in Pietermaritzburg is among the stations with the highest recorded cases of contact crimes such as murder and robbery in the country. Provincial government leaders and police top brass met with concerned residents yesterday. Mkhwanazi elaborates.
When you look at the reality on the ground, it's not necessarily the same. So that's why we've been dealing with the head office to help us to increase the capacity in this area. So that is a start. But for now, we've already done a study to try and demarcate some of the areas to the neighboring police stations. So there's about 3 police stations that are neighboring this one. Some of the development in those areas will be moved towards those police stations.
And finally, a court in Brazil has awarded the former President Jair Bolsonaro and his wife more than $2,500 in compensation. This for claims made by his successor, President Luiz Lula da Silva, that he had stripped the Alvarado Palace of furniture upon his departure. The BBC's Ione Wells has the details.
President Lula had accused his predecessor of stripping the Alvarado Palace of more than 260 objects, including the bed. A judge has now ordered that the former President Bolsonaro and his wife should be compensated for moral damage suffered as a result of these claims, and that the statement be retracted. Mr. Bolsonaro had claimed that they had put the publicly owned furniture in storage and decorated the residence to their own taste during his presidency. The government's lawyers have said they will appeal this ruling.
Recapping the top story, the Department of Correctional Services say efforts are being made to find ways to stop cell phones from being smuggled into prisons. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still very heavy exiting Pretoria's Montana area, heading down the N1 South through Pretoria towards Midrand and Joburg. It is the stationary truck that's stuck just by Linwood Road. 2 lanes on the left are closed, and the traffic all the way back through to Sefaka Mokatso. Also, there's just been a crash on the N1 South around Olifantsfontein, so that's your second big queue on your way to Joburg this morning from Brockfontein all the way down through to a new road, staying heavy. A crash on Joburg's N3 south at Galulis. That's a heavy backlog from Modderfontein Road. Durban, a collision near Westwood Mall. It's on the N2 southbound, so that's heavy coming through in Nunda Road. But the northbound traffic getting caught having a look as well. So M7 north even heavier with a queue from the M7 Bluff exit up through the roadworks and then passing the crash scene. Cape Town, 35th Avenue, Lavis Drive. A crash there earlier, backlogging traffic top of the airport. Robert Sobukwe, 35th and Stellenbosch Arterial, all under pressure. And the M3 still queuing up Wynberg Hill to Paradise Road, and then some more queues down towards UCT. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, the Sports Minister, Gayton McKenzie, has laid down the law saying Bafana must qualify for AFCON and the World Cup. While we also have rugby, Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus has set his sights on winning the Rugby Championship with a game to spare. Details around 8:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
8 minutes after 8 on this Wednesday, the 11th of September, 2024. Good morning, South Africa. It's good to be with you. This is the Morning Brief on SAFM, and I'm Thulasizwe Simelane, here to deliver it to you. We've covered a lot of ground in the last 2 hours or so. Varied topics weighing in about issues of policy as it relates to the shelters for homeless people in Gauteng. There was the proposal coming from the Democratic Alliance that actually you need to be alert and alive to the realities faced by members of the LGBTQ community who are also homeless, that the realities there may require a sort of different intervention and make it possible for people to go to safer and more accommodative shelters. That was from the DA. Then you had the ANC Youth League highlighting their demand for reindustrialization of the South African economy, saying that they are losing their patience and they cannot wait anymore, and making proposals around the use of abandoned buildings, hijacked buildings as student accommodation. And of course the EFF weighing in towards the end of the last hour around concerns to do with those deductions that some employers make to the wages of their employees, meant to be for pension contributions, but guess what? They end up, in some instances, not being paid over to the pension fund administrators. The EFF saying that everyone who needs to act must act. The Minister of Finance among those who need to act to ensure that the pensions of workers are protected. So what we want to do in this hour is to engage you as much as possible. So do give us a call. The number to dial is 086 000 2032. You can also send us a WhatsApp voice note on 061-410-4107. I am aware that a number of your voice notes have come in, and we will engage with them within the next few minutes here on the Morning Brief.
Weeknights on S3 are anything but ordinary. BBC Primetime brings you the best of British television from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Open your mind to Life on Death Row, Thursdays at 9 p.m. and Resistance in a Hostile Environment, a 3-part documentary showcasing turning points which would go on to define race relations in the UK for a generation. Thursdays at 10 p.m. Wind down your weeknights with The Outlaws, Fridays at 9 p.m. and explore the world's most dangerous roads at 10 p.m. Channel your best entertainment with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up.
Hold on to your hats, folks, because FlySafair's heading to the windy corner. That's right, we'll be flying between Cape Town and Windhoek from the 22nd of October, and tickets are on sale now. So, if stunning landscapes, diverse wildlife and vibrant culture is your thing, get to flysafair.co.za now and book flights from just 1,800 Rand. With FlySafair, Namibia is never too far away. FlySafair, for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
The varsity derby between Amatats ladies and UWC ladies will display who are the brighter students. UWC target the top spot, while Amatats want to break into the top 3. This is the Hollywood Best Super League. Catch Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game. University of Pretoria Ladies FC versus University of the Western Cape Ladies FC on Sunday 15 September at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 1. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Call Tulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let's get as many of your calls as possible. I do ask that you keep them sharp and to the point. I will try and give you something back, some feedback, some engagement here and there, but let's keep it as brief and to the point as possible. Let's start with Peter in Durban. And Peter, you want to talk about extortion. Good morning to you.
To the club. I'm an attorney. I've been involved with issues with white-collar crime and education of business, etc., with regards to this. This extortion issue is obviously a much bigger issue than just Mthatha or particular areas. It's a national pandemic, and it boils down, to be brief, to national intelligence, crime intelligence. The minister has recently said that it is a problem. His predecessor consistently ducked and dived the issue. But Mary de Haas, who's been a guest on this particular show, has often said that crime intelligence is the real problem. And unless we get stuck into this, these gangs and cartels will, and I don't want to be melodramatic, but quite honestly, our constitutional democracy is at stake. That's how serious it is. And I think it's time for us to stop pussyfooting around. We've actually got to deal with this as a national war, even. And we've got to deal with it. There's a corruption council that I have heard of before. It was mentioned yesterday on the show. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know what's come out of it. I haven't heard anything. It seems to me there's a lot of talk, but there's not a lot of action. Until that's addressed, extortion, this extortion, these business fora are going to continue, and it's just going to get worse. We've got to get to the bottom of it and find out who's actually behind it and arrest him.
I'm in full agreement, and you're not being melodramatic. We've seen it elsewhere, Peter, how what starts out as crime syndicates and actually ends up threatening this security of the state. I've got to move on and go to Shata, who is out in George. And Shata, you want to talk to us about the building collapse in George. Good morning to you. Right, I think we may have lost Shata there. Let's go to Chris in Pietermaritzburg. And Chris, you want to talk to us about marches by the ANC Youth League. You are saying they are useless. How so?
Because they are epoch-defining. As far as I can remember, Kikaba and Balula, when they were still the president and secretary of the Youth League, led similar marches. And many years later, we still do not have a change. They seem to forget that in South Africa, we once had an industrial policy that never took off. In fact, what we saw during the Zuma years is people who are making toilet papers were called industrialists. So somebody is really playing with the emotions of young people and their sad lived experience. For young people to really shake ground, they need to look elsewhere for solutions, because the Youth League definitely is not carrying its interest at heart, because they continue doing this. It's also, so I remember the AFF, when it launched, this is part of what they did. So are we right? Keep doing the same thing and hoping for a different.
Sure, but you've got to raise the issues, though, Chris. You've got to raise them one way or another. You can't say it's not being done and therefore sit and fold my arms.
You're correct. And these are people, exactly as you ask them. They sit with decision makers. Maybe they're asking the wrong questions. That's the point. The issue has been raised for many, many years.
Okay.
But maybe it needs to be raised differently so that you get the real answers.
All right, I've got to thank you for that. That's Chris out in Pietermaritzburg. Let's go to Putana, who is in Rosebank. And Putana, good morning to you. You want to talk about the missing files of state capture report. My understanding is that they're not missing, but there's a bit of a misunderstanding between the NPA, who want to use them, and the Department of Justice, who are the repository of the files. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Mr. Simelani. We were told yesterday that those files are missing. The Minister of Justice threw herself down the rabbit hole. She says she don't know where the files are. You can't say, we spend about R1 billion. They're telling us we don't know the files where they are. And we are a Minister of Justice. That will explain why the NPA, they've been bundling the cases. And why? What were they waiting for the NPA to access the files? Why are they accessing them now? That demonstrates as well that they are not serious prosecuting those people that are fingered in Zondo Commission. It's not good enough for the minister to tell us that she doesn't know what those files are. Why is the accounting officer?
Yeah.
Why is the accounting officer? Why can't she? That doesn't explain to us. Or is it one of the people that are professionalized? Not knowing what they're doing there. Those are assets of the state.
Absolutely.
You can't tell us that.
I understand, Putana. Thank you so much for that. I actually understand how you feel so strongly about this issue. But as I said, my understanding is that the files are not missing. They just need to find a way to make it work seamlessly, that those files be used by the NPA for prosecutions. And it would seem to me, from what I heard at least, that's where the difficulty seems to be at the moment. Let's go to Khotso. Khotso, you are in Maluti Apofong, and you want to talk about extortion. Good morning to you.
Goeiemôre Thula. Hoe gaan dit?
Goed, dankie. Hoe gaan dit met u?
Meneer Thuli. Let me say thank you very much for taking my call, man. The people of Eastern Cape should be happy to have a king who's supporting them. The king who telling the people the truth that all those the lawyers who are representing the extortioners and the criminals, those lawyers should be killed. I think that's a way that the people they can see and realize that the black people are fed up with the extortioners and the criminals. And first of all, we have to ask ourselves as a South African that who formed who come with the extortioners in our country? Who formed the extortioners? Extortioners is formed by the ANC. That thing is come from the ANC. The ANC has hijacked by the criminals. And those, even the construction mafia and the kidnappers, these are the ANC. All these are falling under the ANC.
Yeah.
And the Dadinja, what he say is not wrong, it's right. All
right.
the lawyers who are representing this rubbish must be killed.
There's no such, Khotso. Unfortunately, I have to disagree with you completely on that point, as well as a generalization that says the ANC is behind this. To the extent that it's a manifestation of policy failures by past ANC governments, yes, then that is a manifestation of those failures. But you can't blanketly blame the ANC for all the crime taking place, that it's ANC people participating in those crimes. I agree with the policy failures and failure to make the state and the country safer. That is fair. But as far as violence against lawyers, there's no world in which I would ever agree with that. But I do thank you for your call out there.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
Yeah, absolutely. Under no circumstances does this station condone violence in any way. And I must say, though, while making that point, that earlier on there was a caller who said there was a figure of speech, certainly as it relates to the lawyers, what King Dalindyebo was saying. And I said, not being a isiXhosa speaker, I am willing to accept that if that is the explanation. The only problem, of course, is that that's not the explanation that was proffered by Princess Ntando Dalindyebo, but I am willing to accept that there's that possibility. The comments around magistrates, of course, is on a separate plane altogether, and I would need to hear a bit more about that. All right, let's move on to the story now. Progress in as far as South Africans renewing their driving licenses, vehicle licenses rather, through online platforms. We are told by the Road Traffic Management Corporation that their analysis of the online platform, Natus, shows that more than 2.5 million vehicle owners have opted for the convenience of the online platform since its launch in 2022. Joining us now to tell us a bit more about this is the Chief Communication Officer at the RTMC, and that is Simon Zwane. Simon, good morning and thank you for your time. So it would seem to me that this was a platform that sort of took hold during the years of COVID-19 and trying to minimize traffic flows of people going to queue to renew their licenses. But you are saying, as the RTMC, you are seeing it being embraced more and more.
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity and welcome back to journalism.
Thank you, Simon.
Yes, this service we introduced in order to ease business and the convenience for motorists to renew their vehicle licenses in 2022. And last year in November we reached 1 million. We are now at 2.5 million. So this is the fastest growing really online service that government has introduced. It seems South Africans have embraced the service and are happy to renew their vehicle licenses online because it's quick and easy really, and you receive your document, your license discs within 3 to 5 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're saying 2.5 million vehicle owners opted for this since the launch in 2022. Does that include the services offered by private providers that seemed to jump onto these platforms a bit earlier on? And I must tell you, I mean, I haven't seen the inside of a post office for a vehicle license renewal in at least 4 years or so.
Yes, there are also some of those that have companies that have partnered with us and are renewing, helping the motorists to renew online with us. But you can renew online directly at no cost with us. And then all you pay is the cost of the courier service, which is 99 Rand. So that it is the cheapest online renewal service. And it's the quickest.
What can you say, Simon, about the efficiency of the website, the downtime, and concerns about security of information when using those platforms on Natus?
It's very secure. It's very secure, and there is no downtime to the service. You can renew in the middle of the night, wherever you are, will deliver. Even if you've forgotten to renew and going on holiday, you can renew from your holiday destination. Will bring it there. And some of the banks have also come on board, like Capitec, FNB, and Nedbank.
Yeah.
On their apps, you can, when you renew there, you are dealing directly with us on the online service, and we are able to service you.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time this morning. That is Simon Zwane, who is the Chief Communication Officer at the Road Traffic Management Corporation, RTMC. Always good to see efforts that try to integrate an all-of-government approach to services to the people. Always commendable to see that happening.
The Science of Life on SAFM.
So since the launch of its first ever iPhone in 2007, Apple has not failed to make a big splash over the release of the latest version of the mobile phone device that has been described as one of the most groundbreaking and transformative technological innovations of the 21st century. Well, the iPhone 16 is out and the buzz is no different in an age where integration of mobile and digital technologies has become something of an evolutionary adaptation for our species. Apple held its traditional launch event on Monday, this time called Glow Time, at which it unveiled the iPhone 16. Let's tease out then just how impressive or otherwise it is likely to be in a market that has since become hugely competitive since the first iPhone was launched. I'm joined by the My Broadband editor, Jan Vermeulen. Good morning, Jan, and thank you for your time this morning. The iPhone 16, impressive, yay or nay?
Yeah, it depends on your definition of impressive. The hardware inside the device is impressive. The software that Apple is rolling out is really impressive. But if you're kind of hoping for something that is like a must buy or like changes everything and is kind of everything to everyone, then those days are long behind us. So Apple unveiled some really, really cool features for people in the audiovisual media industries, filmmakers, musicians, that sort of stuff, with the iPhone Pro range. And then they've got the dedicated camera button, which is cool, and it's also been the brunt of many a joke online. But that's like the one sort of key feature, like hardware feature on the phone that everybody can relate to is this new camera button. But the focus throughout the presentation this week was Apple Intelligence. It was all about the new AI functionality that Apple is bringing to its iOS software. Yeah. And that software is not going to be limited to the iPhone 16. They're going to be rolling out a lot of those features to older devices as well. So, and that's also a great thing about the Apple ecosystem is Apple continues to support its devices long after they've launched. But yes, obviously there will be some of those features that are exclusive to the iPhone 16, but definitely not all of them, not even most of them.
Yeah. So say a bit more about the Apple Intelligence and its integration into the iPhone 16. What do we know about it? What kind of convenience and progress does it bring in the way that people work and communicate?
So some of the stuff that they showed off earlier this week, specifically on, I think it was Monday, specifically was things like summarizing messages that come through to your lock screen and prioritizing the messages as well. So rather than just popping up a message and then like taking the first line of an email or of a WhatsApp that's come through, it summarizes the content of that message and puts like an AI summary in your notification tray. So that's one thing that they showed off about, like how they're integrating Apple Intelligence in there. Then there's writing tools integrated throughout the system, image generation tools that Apple is actually being quite conservative on the image generation side, because I think that, there's real opportunity for abuse. But on the writing side, they've integrated things into all the apps that might benefit from that, whether it's mail or messaging, and it essentially lets you rewrite pieces of text to help you sound more professional, or help you generate ideas, or whatever the case might be. Things that we've seen systems like ChatGPT do. But crucially, what Apple is promising is all of this happens offline on your phone, and so therefore is more private.
Oh, wow.
But for those who want to use ChatGPT, that option is also open to you, because Apple Intelligence is going to have an interface in it that allows you to pull in external large language models, external AI systems to use inside Apple Intelligence, and then you will just have to give permission for those systems to process the information and the prompts and the messages or whatever to help you out.
Lastly, Jan, let's take out our calculators, you and I, in Cyril's economy.
Right.
I saw you doing the numbers. It doesn't come cheap. Estimates just converting without factoring in the tax implications, anything from 16,000 Rand to 40,000 Rand when it comes to South Africa. Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah, probably more than that. And we'll see, what exactly the importers settled on, because they take out forward cover exchange contracts, to take out the currency exchange risk and all that stuff. So it's the same price as the iPhone 15, but the Rand is quite a bit stronger than last year. So here's hoping the price will be slightly cheaper. But yes, the iPhone and especially the iPhone Pro models are expensive. There's no beating around the bush there. They're not, and to be clear, they're not the most expensive phone on the market. Right. All these high-end phones kind of play in the same space.
Right,
you're looking $20,000 or so. But the other devices are going to be cheaper. The iPhone 14s and 15s are going to get cheaper, and the iPhone SE as well.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time and your insights this morning. That is the editor of My Broadband, Jan Vermeulen, talking iPhone 16 here on the Morning Brief. A bit late for the news. Let's check in with Ann Musa now.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, the fraud and corruption case against the former personal assistant to the then Free State Premier Ace Magashule, Muruwadi Cholota, is expected to sit for a pre-trial hearing at the Free State High Court in Bloemfontein today. The Department of Correctional Services say efforts are being made to find ways to stop cell phones from being smuggled into prisons. And Kamala Harris and Donald Trump have accused each other of being weak and lying in their first debate of the 2024 U.S. presidential election. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's still very heavy coming through Pretoria on Route 1. This stationary truck that we've been talking about this morning is still there. It's blocking 2 lanes on the left-hand side by Limwood Road, and the traffic's still very heavy. It backs halfway between sort of Storenville Road and Montana. So if you're coming through Pumalani Plaza or Doornpool Plaza towards the N1, or you're coming out of Montana or Sefaka Makato across from Maloto on Sefaka Makato, just avoid turning onto the N1. It is really a proper backlog this morning. Further down, Brockfontein down to New Road, still heavy on that section of the N1 through Midrand. Crash on the N3 south at Galooly, so traffic coming through from the Eden Vale stays busy. Durban still dealing with the crash scene in amongst the roadworks. N2 south near Westwood Mall, so the N2 through in Nunda Road through Mgena Road on your way to Spaghetti Junction, very slow, and big backlogs on the N2 north into the roadworks, and having a look at the crash on the southbound side as well. Kumashu Highway all of a sudden very busy around the N2 highway. That's top of Krisani, bottom of Kumashu Highway towards the N2 bridge system. Cape Town, Baden-Powell open and flowing at Coastal Park, but the sand this morning around Monmobisi, Khayelitsha side, and reportedly quite thick as well, so mind how you go through there. Plenty of traffic on the N1 from Plattekloof Hill all the way through to the elevated freeway. Marine Drive looking quite heavy through Pardon Island, trying to get into that N1 inbound queue. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning once again. It's been said that there's no one in the entire GNU, who is enjoying his job more than Gayton McKenzie, but he doesn't shy away from talking tough when he needs to.
Yeah. And this time it's on Bafana. If they don't qualify, I think we might see the minister swapping his suit for maybe a whistle.
Yeah.
You know, he wants to be the next Bafana coach. And let's just hope that, you know what, this is a stern warning to the South African Football Association from the Sports Minister, Gayton McKenzie, saying Bafana must qualify for the Africa Cup of Nations and the World Cup or changes will be made. Now, Bafana, of course, didn't give McKenzie something. Well, they did give something to smile about this week. They had a winner against South Sudan, keeping their AFCON qualification hopes alive. Let's hear more from the minister himself.
Do you know that we are the most funded league on the African continent, the PSL? How come that we can't win the African Nations Cup? How come that we can't be accepted in the World Cup? We mustn't accept mediocrity. I'm going to make sure I'm public about it. They know it. I know it. For now, they have my support. But soon, if they don't qualify, we must get people that can qualify.
In the meanwhile, the Bafana coach Hugo Broos didn't hold back after their 3-2 win against South Sudan, admitting the team was far from their best. Broos highlighted the lack of domestic football as a key reason for Bafana's sluggishness. He emphasized that his squad, many of whom had only played friendlies, weren't sharp enough to face aggressive teams like Uganda and South Sudan. Still, it was thanks to Talent Mbata's last-minute heroics that Bafana sits second in Group Key, with crucial matches against Congo coming up later in October. Let's hear more from Coach Broos.
We are not sharp enough. This is not South Africa that we knew from other games. This is the first thing. Second thing, okay, individual mistakes can always happen, but now in 2 games we made individual mistakes. The second goal against Uganda was a mistake. Today the 2 goals of Sudan were 2 mistakes, 2 defensive mistakes we make. So this is something we have to do better in the next game, certainly next month against Congo. And I'm sure that it will be, because at that moment my players should have.
And moving on to now, former Tottenham and Chelsea manager Mauricio Pochettino was hired to succeed Greg Berhalter as the US men's national team coach 21 months before the Americans host the 2026 World Cup. The 52-year-old Argentine Pochettino became the 10th US coach in 14 years and its first foreign-born leader since Jurgen Klinsmann, which he took charge from 2011 to 2016. Now, the Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus has set his sights on winning the Rugby Championship with a game to spare as the Boks prepare to face Argentina in Santiago this Saturday. With 18 points and 4 wins under his belt, the Boks just need 3 more log points to secure their first title since 2019. Despite resting 7 key players, Erasmus has brought a strong squad of 19 World Cup winners, including Siya Kolisi, Ibn Etzebeth and Malcolm Marx. Argentina, they recently crushed Australia 67-27. And that's your sport. Stay tuned for more on SAFM. We'll head to John Hediker at 12:30 for the morning brief. I'm Sai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Darling, good morning and welcome once again. So the only expression I can find for the figures you're about to share around Alex Forbes and the processing of withdrawals from the 2-pot system is it can only be the South Africanism.
Listen, it seems like South Africans are really just want this money, and it just highlights the kind of environment we're in where you could risk your retirement to just kind of, plug the holes for now.
Yeah. 1 billion rand, you say, in a week.
Just in a week since the new retirement legislation has been in place. And now we're getting some of those numbers. The country's biggest retirement fund administrator, Alex Forbes, says it's processed 1.5 billion rand in 2-pot withdrawals, this accounting for about 78,000 claims, and all happening in the first week to us. Now, Alex Forbes says this was far beyond its expectations, further adding that the number of claims it was processing last week is equivalent to the number of claims it processes over a 6-month period. So, this is big. Now, the group the group expects about 270 million rand to be taxed and paid to SARS, and other players in the space also experienced an uptick in claims or calls and questions. Last week we spoke about Sanlam experiencing a high number of calls at its call centers. It's now confirmed that its client call center processed about 5,500 two-part withdrawal requests in the first 2 days. Old Mutual, in the meantime, says 190,000 of its clients used its dedicated two-part WhatsApp channel in the first 2 days of implementation. And Momentum Metropolitan said more than 11,400 of its clients had accessed its two-part chatbot function and completed the eligibility request in the first 3 days. Now, insurance companies have raised concerns about the uptake of retirement funds, saying that many South Africans are making hasty decisions to withdraw from their retirement funds. Alex Forbes notes that while some people need the money due to financial difficulties, others are withdrawing for non-essential expenses or because they don't understand the rules. Momentum Metropolitan advises people to think carefully before withdrawing from their retirement policies and to seek advice from a financial expert if possible, just to avoid making decisions that might harm their long-term financial security.
Sure. Those numbers are just astounding. And
in just the first week, you can you can imagine how it'll be after the first month.
Absolutely. Let's talk company news. Anglo Gold is setting its sights on an Egyptian gold mine.
That's right. Now, M&A activity has just been heating up in the mining sector this year, and the latest bid is from, of course, Anglo Gold. The miner is looking to take over Egypt's biggest gold mine, Centamin. The deal is valued at $44.8 billion and is considered one of the largest bids this year. Shareholders of the Egyptian gold mine will get a mix of Anglo Gold shares and cash for their Centamin shares. Once the deal goes through, Anglo Gold will then own about 83.6% of the new company, and Centamin will own about 16.4%. Those close to the deal have advised Centamin to consider it, saying the transaction's terms are fair and reasonable. Anglo, in the meantime, says the acquisition offered an enormous geological potential that the company was well placed to develop. The inclusion of Centamin's Sukari mine will increase the group's annual gold production by about 450,000 ounces to more than 3 million ounces for the year. Mining analysts are not as upbeat about the deal. In a Business Day article, analyst Peter Major says Anglo Gold is paying 37% more than the market price, so they'll need to work hard to make it worth it. He's pegged the success on gold prices, saying if they rise, the deal will look smart, but if they fall, Anglo Gold will have wasted a lot of money. Mining analyst at Anchor Capital, Seleho Tsatsi, seems to share the same sentiments, warning that Anglo Gold's big purchase might send a wrong signal to investors. It might make them think that gold prices are at their highest point and will soon start falling. He says that big deals like this one can make investors nervous because they are seen as a sign that the market is getting a bit too optimistic, which can lead to a downturn.
All right, just give us a sense of the kind of trading day we can expect when the markets open in about 17 minutes.
So it's another busy day for local traders with earnings galore. Numbers out from gold tailings miner Pan African Resources, one of South Africa's biggest property companies, Growthpoint, as well as logistics firm Supergroup. So traders waking up to that and also eyeing those U.S. inflation numbers. We will probably see the JSE kick off the day in mixed territory ahead of that print. And the U.S. CPI numbers really just driving sentiment today. Ahead of the release, U.S. futures are in the red. Of course, there's some caution playing out, and traders also just unpacking the presidential debate that took place overnight. The rand, in the meantime, tracking news out from the US. There's been some strength coming through as the US dollar weakens. The rand now sitting at 17.87 to the greenback. Back in Asia, the mood pretty downbeat. Markets still in the red, assessing data out from South Korea and China.
All right, Ndauleng, have yourself a fantastic day. That's Ndauleng Lechela there. She's been updating you on all things economy and business and the markets throughout the morning here on The Morning Brief.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
All right, let's move to this now. A medical specimens courier services company is crying foul, alleging that the National Health Laboratories Service unlawfully terminated its 2-year contract in order to serve the interests of some officials within the entity. Shared Economy Affiliate Services, C, is rejecting the reason of non-performance that has been proffered by the NHLS, saying the real reason for the cancellation is an abuse of power and resources by NHLS officials. The company's CEO, Batuka Mbelengwa, accuses the senior leadership of NHLS of destroying a black business with impunity. Batuka Mbelengwa joins me now for that conversation. Good morning to you. It's not a strange proposition in contract law and commercial activity that if you do not deliver, we terminate the contract.
Good morning. It certainly is not. And it is a critical part of contractual management, that if people are not performing, they must be terminated. But in our case, we believe we are the best to render this service in democratic South Africa. We seek a platform to prove this very point. So we can prove that we are terminated because our client refused to engage with us for over 2 years. And, it's a contractual obligation for them to have regional meetings, operational meetings with us. We haven't had a single meeting since 2022 because they simply refused to meet with us, and nobody's holding them to account. We've written to the CEO, we've written to the CFO. You see, the only platform for engagement they're availing to us are the courts, because they've got state resources to abuse in engaging us that way and are behaving in a manner that makes them too big to take a meeting.
Okay, let's say not taking a meeting, I'm willing to admit that it can be inconvenient and pose some difficulties. But given what you needed to do, it's courier service for medical specimens on behalf of the NHLS. How did that hinder you from delivering on your contract, such that it is such a big theme of what you flag as them not cooperating with you?
So essentially, we haven't had a rate increase in 2 years, and we've had fuel go up by 66%. NHLS is not willing to entertain us or engage us when it comes to addressing the matter that speaks to the global fuel crisis. So they've put us in a position whereby we are financially strained, so that we are then beginning to default on services and are simply refusing to implement rate increases, which are contractual obligations. I can confirm that the board, in fact, has approved an increment for us several months ago, and NHLS is refusing to implement that increment because those few with agendas need to see us financially frustrated so they can push us out. The question isn't competence. We are very competent, and I state again, we are the best to render this service in democratic South Africa, and we can prove it in fact, in the technology we've invested in the efforts we've made, in the manner we've made sure that our fleet is compliant, our drivers are trained, and all compliance factors are met, going far beyond even the contractual compliance, and even building our own tech platform so we can then offer more accountability and reporting platforms to NHLS. But if they will not take a meeting with us, if an area manager is empowered to decline meeting with a client, with the service provider, he's not qualified to have an opinion on me. And I'm going to challenge NHLS on this.
So, from what I heard now in your last answer, you talked about quote unquote beginning to default on some services. The NHLS might come back and say that's exactly it. That's the nub of it. That's the non-performance that we are talking about. So, are you admitting that there's an element of you beginning, to quote you, beginning to default on some services? And why should the NHLS then not act on you beginning to default on some services?
Yeah, but it doesn't begin with default. It begins with requests for engagement that date as far back as 2022 that have not been adhered to. You see, if you write to your client and say, we are seeing trouble ahead because of this, it is the client's responsibility to engage you. So I have made every effort to engage this institution. I have written letters. I have requested meetings. I have written to the CFO. I have written to legal. I have written to the senior leadership.
Yeah.
The problem here is that they are too used to relying on legal processes, and they do not act with conviction. They are not willing to submit to robust dialogue and to face on challenges, and they are going to hide behind the courts and say he's defaulting. I'm defaulting because you have sabotaged me into this position, because you do not want to pay me fairly. And I can prove there are those you are paying fairly. I'm defaulting because you are abusing state resources and buying vehicles to service routes and compete with me in a region I am contractually obligated to service.
Right.
And you are therefore manipulating our contract. You are cutting our routes. I have sent you email communication to engage you on this, and you have ignored me. It's because the only language our institutions want to engage on is legal language. They want to talk in the courts. And I'm saying I am ready to submit to scrutiny. I am ready to prove to society that we're the best to do it.
Right.
I am ready to prove that we have conducted ourselves effectively, and I want to challenge the convictions of the leadership at NHLS to say that you have allowed you're the criminals within your organization to sabotage a black business that has fulfilled its mandate to society.
I've got to leave it there. Thank you for sharing those insights with us there. Vatuka Mbelengwa, sharing frustrations about the termination of a contract that the company that he's CEO of, Shared Economy Affiliates of South Africa, C, had with the National Health Laboratories Services. And of course, this part of the show, what we do is we then offer the right of reply to the other party. So you can expect that we'll be working the phone, and hopefully we will get a response and give the NHLS their right of reply to give their perspective on this dispute.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still very heavy coming down the M1 South from Storamful Road. Big queues down to Linwood. It's a stationary truck blocking a couple of lanes on the left at Linwood Road, and that's why the pressure really is on. Still no traffic lights on the Winnie Mandela N1 bridge in four ways, so north and southbound traffic on the highway queuing to get off. Plenty of traffic on the Mike 1 from Buccleuch heading south to Marlborough Drive, jam-packed. Northbound from Glenhove up towards Greyston Drive, very slow. Still some traffic light issues around Greyston Drive at the Mike 1 highway as well, and delays again getting into Santon, particularly Winnie Mandela onto Santon Drive. Ravonia at Ilovo heading north, Ravonia at Morningside heading south, and looping around on Ballyclare. There's some noticeable backlogs there as well. Just for the minute, Durban's M25, slow go out of Kumashu down towards the N2. It's an improving situation. Maybe an obstruction has been cleared away. Crash further down the N2 south before Spaghetti Junction. Traffic stays heavy with a queue right back through Umgeni Road at this stage. Peter Maritzburg down through Camperdown, looking generally okay. Cape Town side, we've been warning about a busy Wednesday. The N1 into town stays under real pressure from sort of Plattekloof Road, N1 City sort of territory, all the way through to the city centre. Behind that, Marine Drive's queuing quite heavily, coming through Pardon Island. And the M3 queuing up from top of Wynberg Hill right through to UCT. Just a heads up, if you come in on that M3 today, we saw solid traffic all the way through up to Paradise Road and Rhodes Drive yesterday. So just check the conditions of that route before you travel today. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Hey, you know, Ndwana, if I could, I'd fly to Dubai.
Here we go again.
First class, Exeni. Niti shwe. Get myself a V12 Beast and a mansion with Instagram-worthy views.
You don't even have Instagram.
Imagine seeing the city skyline from my bedroom, watching MasterChef SA while I have my very own MasterChef in my kitchen. Forget the queues at the cinema. I'd have one in my crib, Joe. I'm talking 7.1 surround sound and a 120-inch 8K TV whilst I'm sipping on some grapes. I'm talking luxury, Ntwana. What do you know about that? Let me school you, bro. Tune into Dubai, Buying the Dream. Saturdays at 8:30 p.m. on S3. And channel your inner luxury. Only on S3. Open up.
The cost of living crisis is real. Here's what one Outsurance client did about it.
I'm Amy. I'm 26 from Kenilworth. When I got my 2022 Ford EcoSport, the immediate thought was to phone Outsurance, and I pay only 819 Rand per month. No insurers were able to beat or match the premium that I'm currently paying.
Want a car insurance premium that will blow your mind? SMS out to 30754 now for a quote and to find out about included benefits like panic assistance that sends the nearest medical or
armed response unit to you wherever you may be 24/7. Here's Yusuf.
45 years old from Tegendal, Western Cape. I pay 700 Rand for my Polo 1.6 2021 model. If you haven't called Outsurance yet, definitely get in touch.
Give it a go. SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and limits apply. Premiums are risk profile dependent and reviewed annually. Client comments do not constitute financial advice.
Weeknights on S3 are anything but ordinary. BBC Primetime brings you the best of British television from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Open your mind to Life on Death Row, Thursdays at 9 p.m. and Resistance in a Hostile Environment, a 3-part documentary showcasing turning points which would go on to define race relations in the UK for a generation. Thursdays at 10 p.m. Wind down your weeknights with The Outlaws, Fridays at 9 p.m. and explore the world's most dangerous roads at 10 p.m. Channel your best entertainment with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up.
Call Tulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Tulasizwe, almost everyone on the ground know who the extortionists are, who the criminals are. People who are kidnapping, hijacking buildings, etc. Only the high authority and the law enforcement agencies don't know, but the rest do. Surprisingly, we've got some people called crime intelligence, just drawing salary every month for doing nothing. Heleset and Hap and do next. Because this information is there. Almost everyone knows it. Victims knows it. But you can't report because the police are also involved. So it's going to be tough. Nobody can come out because if you report, the police will know. They will follow you the following day. Nobody trusts the system. We need a dictator in South Africa who will take the government and throw away the constitution.
Morning to us. That Oscar Mabuyane, he's fishy. There is something wrong about this guy, that premier of the Eastern Cape. He may not be corrupt, but there is something that is sinister about him. Can you imagine a person who can tell the SIU and say, you can't investigate me, stop that? And they do. Since Ramaphosa came in, Oscar Mabuyane is being protected. Highly so. Now he's being mentioned in the extortion. There is something fishy. They must go deeper and investigate. Yeah, Ramaphosa has brought something different in our political system. He brought tribalism. He's the first president who made tribalism to be fashioned as it is. Everyone can just say it's tribalism. And mostly it comes from these provinces. Limpopo and Eastern Cape. It's problematic.
Sure, thank you for those voice notes. And just very briefly, there's something fishy about Oscar Mabuyane. Fishy is not a legal standard, of course. I guess we would need to talk something unlawful that he is doing. I hear the concerns that you are raising, that wherever there are allegations, they should be probed, and I can't disagree with that. We need a dictator in South Africa. I don't know, man. I've heard this argument. I can never agree, but I also agree. I understand the sentiment that everyone knows who the criminals are, except for those who need to do something about it. Let's go to your calls. Let's start with Janusz, who is in Cape Town. And Janusz, you want to talk about the NPA and former Chief Justice Raymond Zondo. Good morning.
That's right. Thank you very much for taking my call. Yesterday, the Sakina program, we learned from that one that actually now NPA got access to the documentation from the Zondo Commission after such a long time. Unbelievable, because they cannot prosecute, they cannot do anything if they haven't got any documentation, which is very strange to me that had to wait for such a long time. And that's not good. And also I think that the NPA shouldn't be paid any bonuses or anything financially in salary yet until they're going to solve some problems. They recover the money from the people who stole this, and the bonuses and also should be related to their performance.
I agree with the promises, the bonuses being related to performances. I don't think anyone can disagree. The NPA, of course, would then come around and say, we are recovering monies, we are putting people in prison, and give you those statistics, those yearly statistics. Let's finish off with Temba, and Temba in Emelo. My neck of the woods in Mpumalanga. Temba, you want to talk about extortion? Good morning to you.
Good morning, my brother.
Yes, please go ahead.
My brother, let me say to you here in South Africa, we don't have time in fighting.
Sorry, Temba, say that again. I'm battling to hear you. All right, that was unfortunate there. I think Temba's line letting us down, and we completely lost Temba from those lines. Unfortunate, but let's hope we can get Temba to call in again. The conversation doesn't stop. We are leading the conversation, but you are an essential part of that conversation here on SAFM. And that brings us to the end of today's edition of The Morning Brief. Thank you so much for listening, and thanks to the team that put it all together. Essential cover from Outsurance pays out claims in cash, allowing you to choose your own panel beater. SMS CAR to 43187 now.
In our top stories, pre-trial hearing of Magashula's former personal assistant set to start, and efforts underway to stop cell phone smuggling into prisons. Good morning. The fraud and corruption case against former personal assistant to the then Free State Premier Ace Magashule, Murwadi Cholota, is expected to sit for a pre-trial hearing at the Free State High Court in Bloemfontein today. The 37-year-old has been charged with fraud, corruption and money laundering in a matter related to the controversial 2014 Free State Asbestos Roof project with 225 million rand. Cholota was granted 2,500 rand bail after a lengthy 3-day bail application last month. Refilwe Magwe reports.
Murwadi Cholota denied all charges leveled against her on the matter relating to the controversial asbestos eradication project worth 225 million rand. Last month, the Free State High Court dismissed Cholota's urgent application with costs to have her arrest and extradition from the United States of America declared unlawful and unconstitutional. Judge Marina Opperman told the defense that they were speculating when they indicated that they won't be able to obtain redress in the normal pre-trial scheduled for September 11th.
The Department of Correctional Services say efforts are being made to find ways to stop cell phones from being smuggled into prisons. They submit allegations that serious crimes are being orchestrated from prison facilities. The department statement follows earlier reports suggesting it intended to place signal and cell phone jammers near St. Albans Prison in the Nelson Mandela Bay. The department says it can't use signal jamming because ordinary citizens will be affected, as well as the emergency services. Department spokesperson Singaba Konxumalo says they are close to finding a solution.
Next to not use their cell phones just to communicate with other people, but at times they will be planning illegal activities. They will even use them maybe to go to other sites, to do other things. You will remember how embarrassing it was when it was discovered that others were even registering for the 250 social grant and all other things using this mobile phone. So as a department, it is necessary that, we find a solution that can assist.
KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkwanazi says police are looking to increase the number of stations and officers in Pietermaritzburg. This due to the persistent high crime levels. The Plesislar Police Precinct in Pietermaritzburg is among the stations with the highest recorded cases of contact crimes such as murder and robbery in the country. Provincial government leaders and police top brass met with concerned residents yesterday. Mkwanazi elaborates.
When you look at the reality on the ground, it's not necessarily the same. So that's why we've been pleading with the head office to help us to increase the capacity in this area. So that is a start. But for now, we've already done a study to try and demarcate some of the areas to the neighboring police stations. So there's about 3 police stations that are neighboring this one. some of the development in those areas will be moved towards those police stations.
The following story contains information that may upset sensitive listeners. A man arrested for allegedly hacking two elderly women to death with an axe at Gachwene outside Polokwane in Limpopo is this morning expected to appear in the Polokwane Magistrates Court. The victims are the suspect's mother, age 78, and his sister-in-law, age 60. A third woman managed to escape the attack. The suspect is facing 2 counts of murder, attempted murder and assault with intent to cause grievous bodily harm. Police spokesperson Brigadier Hlulani Mashaba.
According to police reports, the suspect attacked a 23-year-old woman at a residence with a sharp object. She escaped and sought community assistance. The suspect then ran to his place of residence and killed his 78-year-old mother as well as a 60-year-old sister-in-law with the same object. The police apprehended the suspect with community assistance. The injured woman was taken to the hospital for medical treatment.
Further afield, and finally, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump have accused each other of being weak and lying in their first debate of the 2024 U.S. presidential election. On foreign policy, Harris said Trump is being laughed at by world leaders and only wanted to impress autocrats. He responded by saying the geopolitical crisis of the past few years would not have happened had he had been in charge. On Ukraine, Trump refused to answer whether he thought Kyiv should win. Harris defended U.S. military aid, saying it was essential that the U.S. stood by its allies.
If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Recapping the top story, the fraud and corruption case against former personal assistant to the then Free State Premier Ace Magashule, Murwari Cholera, is expected to sit for a pre-trial hearing at the Free State High Court in Bloemfontein today. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
And that's the news for this hour. Theft, accident and R1 million liability cover, all covered by Outsurance Essential. Get a quote today, SMS car to 43187.
#SAFM Talking Point.
Liverpool FC have collected maximum points in their opening 3 matches of the 2024-2025 season. They want more victories.
Look at the white shirts coming here. Salah!